Rias stared at Akira, her mind racing. So that's why he attacked the fallen angels. Come to think of it, it did make sense. Hyudois say, that unfortunate boy, had been murdered by the fallen angels simply because he carried a sacred gear. Akira was also human, and he too possessed a sacred gear. The only difference was that Akira was strong. Ridiculously strong. And since fallen angels hunted down sacred gear wielders, Akira was clearly one of their targets. Of course he would strike first. What Akira didn't know was that a single sentence from him had already led Rias to imagine dozens of different scenarios in her head. If he knew, he might have actually given her a thumbs up. A sudden, sharp tearing noise split the air as violet blue lightning surged around Akira's body. The arcs of energy crackled and snapped wildly, lighting up the battlefield like a storm in human form. Standing on the ground, Akira looked up at Rainare. This was the power of blue lightning light, a new ability he had only just acquired. He could now control this lightning at will. It wasn't pure heavenly lightning, but it was still a powerful new option in his arsenal. After all, chains of heaven wasn't always the best solution in every situation. Is that lightning? He can even control lightning. Just how many abilities is this guy hiding? Rias's expression shifted slightly. This guy really liked to hold back, didn't he? The first time they met, he had only shown chains of heaven. When he fought Chiba, he displayed terrifying physical strength and close combat technique. And now? Lightning control too? What the hell is Akira? Some kind of monster? Meanwhile, she herself only had one power, destruction, and even that was still in its early stages. In the sky above, lightning arced once more, splitting the air as it shot toward Rainare with deadly precision. The blue lightning force had locked onto her like a hunter to its prey. Damn it! Rainare didn't dare take any chances. She conjured a spear of light and hurled it forward to intercept the incoming strike. The impact lit up the sky like a brief explosion of power. But before she could even catch her breath, a golden glint flashed behind her. A glowing chain tip emerged like a serpent from the shadows and drove straight through her heart. Impossible! Rainare stared down at her chest in disbelief. A glowing chain had impaled her directly through the heart. Believe it or not, it was already over. A sickening crack sounded as her heart was shattered, and her life came to a swift end. Her body fell limply to the ground lifeless. And as if guided by some cruel twist of fate, her corpse landed right beside Hyudoise's. The two faces, frozen in death, now faced each other, as if they were lovers who had died together. A cold tone echoed in Akira's mind. You've obtained 1% of the inherited template. He scoffed. So Rainare was only a low-tier fallen angel after all. He had initially assumed she was mid-tier, given that she was leading the others in Kuoh town. But in the end, it seemed like he had overestimated her. Sure, she was something like a team leader among the fallen angels here, but that was about it. Rias-senpai, I'll leave this to you. His voice was calm and steady. Rias responded instinctively. With a wave of her hand, she activated her destruction power. The two corpses disintegrated into nothingness, erased from the world. After all, this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Whenever Akira defeated a stray devil or enemy, the cleanup was always left to Rias. Over time, it had become something of a routine. Akira would handle the fighting, and Rias would handle the aftermath. This time was no different. He gave her the cue, and she moved without hesitation. Hey! I'm not your subordinate, you know. Realizing what she had just done, Rias puffed her cheeks and protested. Why not? We work pretty well together, don't we, Rias-senpai? Akira smirked, clearly enjoying her reaction. Work well, my ass. Rias glared at him, half annoyed, half exasperated. Sure, with Akira around, cleaning up stray devils had gotten way easier. But still this coward kept getting under her skin. He always turned her down, yet still dumped the cleanup on her like it was nothing. How rude could one guy be? And yet, she couldn't actually say no to him. Because this was her responsibility to begin with. Whether Akira asked her or not, she'd still have to handle it. After all, this town was under the Gremory family's jurisdiction. Shin-kun, just how many trump cards are you hiding? Rias looked at him, her eyes filled with curiosity and a touch of frustration. In a world this dangerous, if you want to survive, of course you need to keep a few trump cards. Otherwise, you're as good as dead. So you do still have more, don't you? Akira didn't respond. He fell silent. But to Rias, that silence was as good as a confession. To be honest, he didn't have anything else yet. But that didn't mean he wouldn't in the future. He had only unlocked 34.1% of the Enkidu template so far. There was still 65.9% left. A vast amount of potential just waiting to be drawn out. As she stared at the boy before her, Rias couldn't help but wonder what exactly had he gone through in the past? Why was he so guarded? So obsessed with strength? She had always thought of herself as someone obsessed with power. But compared to Akira, she felt like she hadn't even scratched the surface. At her current age, she has already reached high-class rank. That alone made her a certified genius. But to go even higher, she still needed time to accumulate more demonic energy, slowly and steadily. After all, devils were long-lived beings. This was still her growth phase. Because she couldn't boost her power in short bursts, she had begun recruiting strong pawns to join her team, especially with the raiding game scene becoming more competitive by the day. And Akira was the greatest potential she had ever come across. Unfortunately, he kept refusing every offer she gave him. Chapter 26, The Boosted Gear of the Red Dragon Emperor. Chapter 26, The Boosted Gear of the Red Dragon Emperor. Even after everything that had happened, Akira still lived in the same small 1DK apartment meant for a single person. It wasn't because he was stingy, it was simply because he couldn't be bothered to move. Earlier that day, he had used the system to exchange 5% of his template inheritance rate, just enough to seize the fate of the dying Hyudo Issei. And with it, the boosted gear, the Longinus class sacred gear of the Red Dragon Emperor. The result completely caught him off guard. He hadn't expected to obtain a god-class sacred gear so easily. And at the same time, it confirmed a theory he'd held since before crossing into this world. Hyudo Issei's protagonist aura was entirely derived from the boosted gear. Every achievement, every breakthrough, all of it traced back to that sacred gear. If you had to break it down, maybe Issei's only true personal contribution was his absolute obsession with Oppai. That obsession had birthed an unusual willpower, a twisted determination that led him down a different path from previous Red Dragon Emperors. Well, it was a cheat clearly prepared for a protagonist. But now that power belonged to Akira. Closing his eyes, Akira let his consciousness sink inward. With roughly 1/3 of Enkidu's power already inherited, entering his own mental world was no longer a challenge. Within his subconscious, there existed a special space, a realm where the soul of the boosted gear's dragon resided. As soon as he arrived, the world around him shifted in an instant. Fire surged across the landscape, turning everything into a sea of flames. High above, a massive red dragon gazed down upon him with solemn authority, its molten eyes glowing through the rising smoke. A deep, resonating voice echoed through the burning air. "Human, you're truly a mystery. Without warning, you pulled me from my previous host and bound me to yourself." The dragon's voice rumbled like distant thunder, heavy and majestic. Lava bubbled and cracked across the scorched ground, the air thick with blistering heat and crushing pressure. But Akira remained calm. He was well aware of where he stood inside the boosted gear's inner world, the mental domain ruled by the Red Dragon Emperor, Drag. Here, the dragon reigned supreme. As the soul housed within the sacred gear, this entire space was shaped by his will alone. One of the two heavenly dragons, Red Dragon Emperor, Drag Gotch. The dragon narrowed his eyes, then gave a slow nod. That's correct. I am Drake. And you, are my new partner. You've suddenly been given a new master, Akira said plainly. No complaints? No objections? Drake's molten gaze remained steady. None. I care not who the host is. My name is Shin Akira, Drake. Very well. I'll remember it. Shin Akira, my new partner. The blazing world around him began to fade as Drake's voice softened, and Akira's consciousness smoothly returned to his body. He opened his eyes, calm and composed. A familiar voice echoed in his mind. Boost. A crimson gauntlet materialized on Akira's left arm, gleaming brilliantly under the room's dim light. Embedded on the back of the hand was a vivid green gem, pulsing faintly with power. The boosted gear, one of the Longinus class sacred gears. A divine weapon that could double the user's power every 10 seconds. Though temporary, the potential amplification could theoretically surpass even Mu or God-level beings. This cheat-like ability, once reserved for the story's protagonist, now belonged entirely to Shin Akira. Drake's voice rang out again in his mind, filled with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Partner, tell me, are you really human? Your current physical body is no longer at a human's level. You're a monster. Akira gave a light chuckle. Of course I'm human. But I'm not your average human, Drake. The dragon's voice responded with a sharp laugh. Ha! Looks like I really hit the jackpot this time, partner. Akira smirked. No, Drake. You didn't get me, I got you. Laughter rumbled through his mind like a landslide. Ha 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 ha. Excellent. I like your attitude, partner. As one of the two heavenly dragons, Drake had always taken the dominant, aggressive path. And as a dragon, especially the Red Dragon King, his pride knew no bounds. That pride was also what had driven him, alongside Albion the White Dragon Emperor, to plunge into the battlefield of the three great factions, a decision that eventually led to both their deaths and their souls being sealed within sacred gears. Because of that, Drake never took issue with being passed from one host to another. To him, strength was all that mattered. The strong deserved everything. The weak had no say. And now that he'd encountered Akira, a user with overwhelming strength, Drake was fully satisfied. This time, in the eternal duel between the Red and White Dragon Emperors, Drake was sure of his victory. There was no way Albion's new host could surpass Akira. Akira had no idea what Drake was thinking. But now that he had the boosted gear, his confidence had risen drastically. This sacred gear really was a cheat. As long as his body could endure it, he could double his power every 10 seconds. Absolutely insane. Even better, Akira, as the inheritor of Chains of Heaven, could passively absorb energy from the earth just by standing on solid ground. Even with heavy injuries, as long as his feet touched the ground, his body would rapidly heal. And if that was combined with the boosted gear. Boost. 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 One after another, the gauntlet flared. 3 consecutive surges of energy rushed through his body. His strength multiplied exponentially, first 2-fold, then 4-fold, then 8-fold. The sheer power coursing through him felt like a roaring tide, almost too much to contain. Drake's voice returned, this time firm and grave. Partner, based on your current physical capabilities, you can safely handle up to 5 boosts. Beyond that, your body will start to suffer damage. Your absolute limit is 7. Any more than that, and you'll be torn apart. Coincidentally, Akira had been wondering just how much he could push his body. And now, Drake had given him the exact answer. 5 boosts meant 32 times his base power. That was his safe limit. The highest he could go was 7 boosts, a staggering 128 times. And don't forget, Akira was already at high-class devil level. If he pushed boosted gear to the maximum, his power could easily surpass most high-class devils, maybe even graze the threshold of the ultimate class. As for Mu level, that was still too far off. Mu-tier beings were strategic-level threats. Not something you could casually challenge. Besides, Akira had never actually encountered a true Mutir entity. He had no point of reference for what kind of power they truly wielded, so he couldn't accurately judge where he stood in comparison. But this was more than enough. At least for now, he could finally breathe easy. The strongest enemy on the horizon was likely just a top-tier fallen angel. And Akira's current power was more than enough to handle that. Not to mention, his strength would only continue to grow as the story progressed. More than a month had passed since he first arrived in this world. And now, for the very first time, Akira could finally relax. With the power to defend himself, the tension and pressure that had constantly weighed on him, slowly began to fade. Chapter 27, Akeno Himejima's Visit. Chapter 27 Akeno Himejima's Visit. Early the next morning, Akira woke up earlier than usual. It was the best sleep he'd had in a long while. The heavy weight in his chest had lightened, and for the first time in days, his body could finally relax. Today was the weekend, so there was no need to go to school. When he glanced at the clock beside his bed, the time had already passed 10 in the morning. It seemed he'd really slept in. Ding dong! Suddenly, the doorbell rang, catching Akira off guard. Who would come visit him on a day off like this? It was worth noting he had never given out his home address to anyone. So who could possibly know and come all the way here? With curiosity building up inside, Akira walked to the door and opened it. And the moment it opened, standing there was the silhouette of a stunningly beautiful woman. Good morning, Akira-kun. Judging by the look on your face, don't tell me you just woke up. The one standing at his door was none other than Akeno Himejima, the elegant and captivating devil Oni-san. Well, it is the weekend, so I decided to sleep in a bit. I see. But Akira-kun, aren't you going to invite me in first? Please, come on in. Akira quickly stepped aside, allowing her in. Without the slightest hesitation, Akeno entered like it was second nature. Once inside, her gaze swept across the small room. She hadn't expected Akira to live in such a modest space, a tiny 1DK apartment meant for a single person. Her mother, Shuri Himejima, had been a shrine maiden from one of the 5 great clans, the prestigious Himejima family. So from a young age, Akeno had never known what it meant to lack money. Even after her mother's death and being hunted by her own clan, she was rescued by Rias and still lived comfortably. In Kuoh town, she even owned a shrine of her own. Despite being a devil, she still carried on her mother's legacy as a Miko, a way of honoring the woman who raised her. And this might have been the first time Akeno had ever stepped into such a tiny 1DK apartment. Looks like Akira-kun really is struggling financially. No wonder you're always short on cash. Heir. Her blunt remark left Akira speechless. What's that supposed to mean? Just because she's rich? Akeno-senpai, you didn't come all the way here just to tease me, did you? Ahaha, sorry, I forgot you were even here for a second. My bad. It's fine. Besides, I've got money now too. That's thanks to you, senpai. That's true. Though, it was your project, yet you dumped everything on me. Aside from the manuscript and your pen name, you didn't handle a single thing. You're a total slacker of a boss. Well, that's because I trust you, Akeno-senpai. Akira scratched his cheek awkwardly. He knew she was right. After handing over his manuscript, he had completely stepped back. From the contracts to the legal paperwork, Akeno had taken care of everything. Strictly speaking, it wasn't how things were supposed to be done, but Akeno had strong backing. Now that she was bringing it up face to face, Akira couldn't help but feel a little guilty as the author. Yesterday, our bucko told me something interesting, Akeno said, her eyes narrowing playfully. What was it? She said, you've got way too few trump cards. To protect myself. There it was again, that classic excuse. Even Akeno didn't know how to respond to that one anymore. So, would it be alright if you shared just a tiny little secret with me? Let's call it a private little thing between just the two of us." A mischievous grin played on her lips as she leaned in ever so slightly. This was the real reason she came today. After returning from the base yesterday, Rias had been unusually restless. Just how strong was Akira? How many abilities was he still hiding? Her curiosity had kept her up all night. So early this morning, she'd gotten up and asked Akeno for a favor. She asked her to visit Akira, and dig a little. After all, Akira was the type who was too relaxed and often pushed responsibilities onto others. If Akeno pressed a little, there was a good chance he'd spill something. Especially since she was beautiful, and shared a pretty close relationship with him. This is Buku's idea, isn't it? My Akira-kun is so sharp, it's not even fair. Akeno didn't deny it. Because even if she had, Akira would have seen through it anyway. A trump card is a last resort I keep to protect myself. If I just casually tell everyone about it, wouldn't that defeat the purpose? Why not? Don't tell me Akira-kun doesn't like his senpai. As she said that, Akeno leaned forward slightly. And right there in front of Akira's eyes, or rather, deliberately placed in his line of sight, was her monstrous class figure, proudly on display. A woman's strongest weapon was her body. And Akeno had quite the arsenal. A calm heart, like still ice. Even if the heavens fall, remain undisturbed. Akira quickly looked away, cheeks burning as he chanted a mental mantra to keep himself composed. Seeing that, Akeno chuckled quietly. His reaction was just too cute. Especially that blush on his handsome face, it hit all the right nerves in a girl's heart. What do you think? Heart pounding yet? I wouldn't mind if we got a little closer. She whispered those words directly into his ear, her breath soft and warm. All right then, Akeno-senpai. I'll show you something. Hey? That's all I get for a reaction? I thought for sure you'd pounce on me or something. That's disappointing. Akeno sighed, slightly let down. But Akira knew if he had tried anything, she'd only end up making him the butt of some cruel joke. Akeno was the classic sadistic Oni-san type. Even if she flirted, she wasn't someone who'd fall for her own game. Boost! Suddenly, Drake's voice echoed, and a red gauntlet materialized over Akira's arm. Akeno froze for a moment. A sacred gear? Wait, was this his second gear? Humans with two sacred gears were exceedingly rare, practically legendary. You could count them on one hand. And one of them was standing right in front of her. Is that the dragon arm? The dragon arm, one of the lower tier sacred gears. It allowed its user to double their physical strength. The effect was limited. Especially for normal humans, doubling strength often didn't make much of a difference. From 1 to 2 was still a small leap. But when wielded by someone like Akira, the results were anything but small. Nope. This is one of the Longinus class sacred gears, boosted gear, the power of the Red Dragon Emperor. Akira said it casually, as if it were no big deal. Of course, he was doing it as a tiny little payback for Akeno's earlier teasing. Chapter 28, that so-called protagonist aura is seriously overpowered. Chapter 28, that so-called protagonist aura is seriously overpowered. AD Divine Class Sacred Gear. Akeno Himejima was utterly stunned as she stared at the glowing crimson gauntlet on Akira's arm. Her reaction was perfectly understandable. No one could blame her for being shocked. The revelation was just too overwhelming. A divine class sacred gear, one of the ultimate weapons capable of slaying gods themselves. And to make things even crazier, it was the boosted gear, one of the most legendary sacred gears in all of history. Every generation's wielder of the boosted gear had been a Red Dragon Emperor. Unless they died young in an accident, all of them had reached the very summit of the supernatural world. What's more, every Red Dragon Emperor in history had always grown at a terrifying pace, some reaching Mu-class strength in their teens or early 20s, rivaling the leaders of the major factions. Another important fact, the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor had always been destined rivals. Just like Drake and Albion in the past, their clashes had once torn the world apart. Wielders of the boosted gear and divine dividing were fated to fight inevitably, relentlessly. Akira already possessed a chain-type sacred gear. Now, he had the boosted gear as well as a divine class sacred gear. No wonder Akeno was in complete shock. "Partner, why did you summon me? Are we going into battle?" Drake's voice echoed in Akira's mind, and the green gem embedded in the gauntlet pulsed, as if signaling a communication link. "Red Dragon Emperor." Akeno muttered the title softly and cautiously. The boosted gear and divine dividing weren't just powerful, they housed the souls of ancient dragons, the two heavenly dragons. These sacred gears had consciousness, and could actively assist their wielders in growing stronger. In certain situations, they could even intervene directly. This energy. You're a devil? Wait, not just which devil, but also, that's enough. Before Drake could finish, Akeno cut in sharply, her voice firm. Her expression had changed drastically. Sensing the shift, Drake immediately fell silent, and Akira deactivated the boosted gear, causing the gauntlet to fade. Akeno Himejima, daughter of Shuri Himejima, a shrine maiden from one of the 5 great clans, and Barakiel, a high-ranking fallen angel, was a rare half-blood. Within her veins flowed the blood of a high-class fallen angel. Back then, Shuri, a shrine maiden from one of Japan's 5 great exorcist clans, accidentally encountered a gravely injured Barakiel. Barakiel was one of the top executives of the Grigori, known by the title God of Thunder. She saved him. They fell in love. Akeno was the result. But such a relationship between a human and a fallen angel was a blasphemy to the Shinto traditions upheld by the Himejima clan. While Barakiel was away on a mission, the Himejima family came to demand Shuri surrender her daughter for judgment. Shuri refused. And for that, she was killed by her own kin. When Barakiel returned, he hunted down those responsible and annihilated them, but it was too late to save her. From that day on, Akeno held deep hatred for the fallen angel blood within her, and blamed her father for her mother's death. She refused his protection and rejected everything he stood for. She fled, surviving by exorcising evil spirits while being relentlessly pursued by the Himejima clan. Until one day, she encountered a young girl, Rias Gremory. Rias chose to protect her. In the name of the Gremory family, she negotiated directly with the Himejima clan and forced them to back down. Since then, Akeno and Rias became close friends, growing up and learning together. As a gesture of gratitude and partly out of disgust for her fallen angel heritage, Akeno agreed to become one of Rias's pieces and reincarnated as a devil. Barakiel, guilt-ridden, never once objected to her decision. Ironically, whether due to narrative convenience or protagonist-centric design, every one of Rias's peerage members had some sort of tragic backstory. Akeno carried the burden of her mother's death and hatred for her father. Konako suffered trauma from her sister, Kurika. Chiba was obsessed with destroying holy swords after surviving a horrifying experiment. Gasper was, well, an unreliable shut-in vampire with zero confidence. "Senpai, you should calm down." "Sorry. I got a little carried away." Akeno took a deep breath, realizing that her emotions had flared up more than she intended. Akira could only sigh quietly. The entire scene unfolding in front of him felt like something straight out of a rom-com harem anime, a heartfelt talk between the protagonist and a heroine, culminating in an emotional connection. Could it be that after seizing Hyudo Issei's protagonist aura, I also inherited all his story flags? Akira-kun, you must be wondering why I reacted like that. Not really. You're too kind, Akira-kun. Akeno gave a soft smile and gently sat on the edge of his bed. Given the tiny size of the 1DK apartment, there wasn't really anywhere else to sit. Akira let out a breath of resignation. Great. Now the cliché scene was really starting. The truth is, I have another identity. Something beyond just being a devil. Akira didn't interrupt. At a time like this, all he could do was listen. It was clear Akeno was opening up about her past. A soft whoosh swept through the room. Behind Akeno, two black wings unfolded. One was the leathery wing of a devil. The other, feathery and dark, a fallen angel's wing. She revealed her true self right in front of him. Seeing this, Akira felt more certain than ever this was the kind of development that would only happen to a protagonist. Akeno, who was usually guarded and cautious, had willingly exposed her deepest secret. Yup. Harem protagonists were built differently. They always triggered miraculous events, earned unwavering trust, and won the hearts of all the heroines. Well? Disgusting, isn't it? Seeing Akira's transfixed gaze, Akeno bit her lip and muttered quietly. Heir. From a guy's point of view? Not at all. If anything, it's beautiful. Really beautiful. I thought so. Akira-kun, you're just too gentle. No, I'm not some generic nice guy archetype. Akira quickly shook off the label. Akira-kun. Suddenly, Akeno leaned forward and embraced him. Their bodies pressed close. Akira's entire frame went stiff in an instant. After all, Akeno's figure was overwhelming. That hug brought with it the full softness of the world. Chapter 29, Akeno starts to fall in love. Chapter 29, Akeno starts to fall in love. The two of them were still locked in a hug completely initiated by Akeno. Hey! After a few seconds, Akeno began to sense something strange. It felt like something was pressing against her. The moment she realized the position they were in, combined with the very noticeable sensation she just felt, she immediately shoved Akira away without hesitation. Her face turned bright red in an instant. There was no doubt she was fully aware of what just happened. Now that she thought about it, she had been acting a bit recklessly today. Without a second thought, she had run up and hugged Akira without even warning him. When she looked at him again, she saw that Akira's face had also turned beet red. It was obvious this was probably his first time experiencing something like that. With his current appearance, green hair, green eyes, a handsome face, and now that flustered expression, it was an irresistible combination for any girl. Akira-kun, are all guys really like this? The moment they see a pretty girl, dirty thoughts start flooding their heads. Akeno, it's just a natural physiological reaction. And besides, you're the one who suddenly came over and hugged me. I am a young man, you know, full of passion. So you've stopped calling me senpai, hey? That. This is better. From now on, you don't need to call me senpai anymore. Just say my name. Akeno. Think of it as a little gift. But since your dirty thoughts were written all over your face, I'll be going home now. She leaned forward and gently kissed his cheek. Then, without giving him a chance to respond, Akeno turned around and left. Akira stood frozen. Did she just flirt with him? He reached up and touched the cheek she kissed. A small smile crept onto his lips. That felt nice. So this is the kind of intoxicating love everyone envies, hey? Before he reincarnated, Akira had always wondered what dizzying romance felt like. And now, in this new world, it seemed that wish might actually come true. Partner, that was truly pathetic. What's that supposed to mean, Drake? That girl's clearly interested in you. If you'd just been a little more aggressive, you could have conquered her right there. Shut up. We don't have that kind of relationship. Oh please. I could feel your heartbeat skyrocketing. Your pulse spiked like crazy. And let's not ignore the fact that you were aroused, weren't you? Can you not say that out loud? Akira yelled in frustration. Even though the dragon had been dead for who knows how many centuries, he still found a way to mock him. But what really made it worse was how accurate that last sentence was. Right to the heart. Relax, partner. Every wielder of the boosted gear ends up surrounded by women. You won't be lacking female company in your future, trust me. Wait, are you saying all boosted gear users are playboys? Not necessarily. But we dragons naturally possess a powerful attraction to the opposite sex. It's in our very essence. Why do you sound like a sacred gear that doesn't take things seriously? That was the most honest impression Akira could come up with. After all, it was a well-known fact dragons were, by nature, wild creatures. Of course they'd be like that. In both Eastern and Western mythologies, dragons were always depicted as mighty beings, symbols of ultimate power. But one thing was consistent across the board when it came to reproduction: dragons were anything but picky. Dragon offspring, no matter the region, were often unique. Some might even say eccentric. Like true seed-spreading beasts. Meanwhile, outside Akira's apartment, Akeno Himejima leaned against the wall, one hand on her chest, her breathing shallow and her face still flushed. She didn't know why, but earlier, Akira had looked so alluring. So captivating. She had nearly lost control, nearly done something she couldn't take back. Thankfully, her rationality kicked in just in time. She managed to pull herself back before going too far. Why? Am I falling for that special boy? Is it because we share the same tastes? Or, because he doesn't care who I really am? Her face turned an even deeper shade of red. Her head felt light, as if she were drunk on love. She shook her head softly, trying to calm herself down. Then, she activated a teleportation spell, and in a flash of magic, vanished from in front of Akira's door. Elsewhere, in the occult research club room, despite it being a day off, Rias Gremory was present as usual. Normally, Akeno would be by her side. Since childhood, the two had been nearly inseparable, not just as master and servant, but like sisters. But today, Akeno had gone out, leaving Rias alone in the room. Zing! A teleportation circle suddenly lit up. Rias turned around, surprised to see Akeno appear in the center of the room. Akeno! At first, Rias was simply startled. But the moment she saw her friend's flushed face and unsteady breathing, her expression changed. Though Akeno often acted flirtatiously, at her core, she was still a relatively modest girl. But right now, she looked like she'd just done something. Akeno, you're back. Yet. Where were you just now? I just came from Shin Akira's place. You went to his house. Rias shot to her feet, visibly shocked. Akeno had gone to Akira's home and came back looking like this? No way, did they take a step toward becoming adults already? Weren't you the one who told me to go, Rias? Oh right. I did ask you to go. Only after hearing Akeno's words did Rias remember. She had pushed her to go investigate Akira earlier that morning. But seeing Akeno like this had been so suspicious, she'd completely forgotten the context and jumped to the wrong conclusion. You're okay, right? Rias quickly stepped closer, supporting Akeno, who still looked a little unsteady. Her expression was full of concern. But deep down, Rias was starting to feel uneasy. Could it be that in the process of gathering intel, Akeno had ended up giving herself away? Rias, do you want to know the biggest secret Shin Akira is hiding? Biggest secret? What is it? He has a sacred gear. I know that. You mean those chains, right? No, I mean, he has another one. Another one? He's a dual sacred gear user. Now it was Rias's turn to be shocked. Someone born with two sacred gears? What kind of monster was he? And it's not just any sacred gear. The other one is the boosted gear one of the Longinus. Boosted gear? He's the current Red Dragon Emperor. That's right. This is... Rias was completely at a loss for words. The information was simply too overwhelming. Longinus among all sacred gears, they stood at the very top. Each wielder had the potential to change the world. That wasn't theory, it was fact. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing mind. So Akira wasn't just the host of the boosted gear, the Red Dragon Emperor, he also had another sacred gear, Chains of Heaven. On top of that, he had incredible physical strength, combat skills, and could manipulate lightning. How many trump cards was he hiding? And to think, the one ability he kept hidden the most, was actually the boosted gear, a Longinus class sacred gear. Chapter 30, Assault on the Abandoned Church. Chapter 30, Assault on the Abandoned Church. But at that very moment, Rias realized something strange. Akira, who had always been suspicious of others and constantly repeated how he had to protect himself, why had he so easily opened up and revealed his secret to Akeno? Had their relationship really progressed that far? She glanced at Akeno, who had mostly recovered her composure, though a faint blush still lingered on her cheeks, and Rias couldn't help but feel as though she'd just uncovered something significant. But along with that realization, came a faint sense of displeasure. As a fellow woman, was she inferior to Akeno? Was it her face? Her body? Or something else entirely? Why was it that Akira remained so guarded around her, but lowered his defenses so easily, with Akeno even going so far as to reveal such a massive secret? For the first time since childhood, Rias felt an emotion she had never directed toward Akeno Himejima. It wasn't just rivalry, it was a subtle, nagging sense of envy, mixed with a sting to her pride. It was far different from the open and fair competition she usually shared with Sana Satrai. "By the way, Akeno," she asked, casually, though the undertone was anything but light, "what exactly is your relationship with Shin now?" The question sounded harmless enough, but there was a clear implication behind it. Akeno, however, didn't seem to catch it. Or more accurately, she was too caught up in her own thoughts to notice anything beneath the surface. "Us? I guess you could say, we're friends now." A gentle smile bloomed on Akeno's face. But to Rias, it felt like a dagger to the heart, sweet and sharp, aimed directly at lonely souls like hers. "You too, don't tell me you're dating." "Dating? Rias, why would you even think that?" "Well, you did come back looking like someone who just finished intense exercise or something. Shaky legs, flushed face, did you really think I wouldn't notice?" "Don't get the wrong idea. We're just friends, really." Akeno quickly waved her hands and denied it. But her slightly flustered reaction only made Rias even more suspicious. Even so, Rias eventually chose to trust her. After all, they had grown up together. And she knew Akeno wasn't the kind of girl who would give herself away so easily. Meanwhile, after Akeno's departure, Akira finally left his apartment. Yesterday, he had already dealt with Rainare, the fallen angel. But there were still others roaming around Kuoh City. And to Akira, they were quite literally walking experience points. His target today was the old abandoned church near the edge of town. Though it had been deserted for years, the location was still easy to find either via a map or by asking around. Upon arriving at the vicinity, Akira began testing his newly enhanced detection abilities. He stepped onto the soil and tapped into the power of the earth beneath his feet, letting his senses spread through the terrain. While he wasn't at the level of Enkidu, who could fully manipulate the land itself, Akira could now at least perform basic functions like energy detection and drawing power from the ground. A gentle hum of mana vibrated beneath his soles. Through the power of the earth, he sensed them clearly, 4 sources of magical energy inside the church. 3 of them radiated an aura similar to Rainare's, almost certainly more fallen angels. The remaining one was far weaker. Most likely, a human. Based on the original story's flow, this had to be that crazy priest. "Drake, let's see just how powerful the combination of your strength and my noble phantasm really is." "I am curious too, partner." "In that case, let's begin." Boost. A crimson gauntlet materialized on Akira's arm, and a pulse of power surged through his body, instantly doubling his strength. But he didn't attack right away. Instead, he waited. Boost. 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 5 consecutive boosts later, Akira's magic power had reached 32 times its original strength, an absurd level of amplification. Even he had trouble believing he'd achieved such a massive increase. That's enough, partner. Any more and your body might not hold up. Understood. Then, shine forth chains of heaven. A massive pulse of magical energy exploded from Akira. Dozens of radiant golden points of light appeared behind him. From each point, chains burst forth, slicing through the air like divine spears. A moment later, the church, an old structure that had stood for decades, was reduced to rubble, blown apart by the sheer force of his attack. From within the crumbling ruins, 3 figures emerged, soaring through the debris with desperate speed. All of them bore black wings, fallen angels. Their bodies were bloodied, and both their wings and limbs showed heavy damage. You bastard! How dare you attack us? One of them, a burly middle-aged man dressed in a heavy coat and wearing a classic round hat, glared at Akira with fury. His wings were nearly torn off, and his left arm and right leg had been badly injured. Beside him stood Kuoh and middled, one a voluptuous woman, the other a petite girl, both of them wounded and visibly shaken. So you're still alive, what a shame, Akira muttered, clearly disappointed. Looks like Chains of Heaven isn't the best tool for area of effect attacks. The chains were, after all, a noble phantasm best suited for precise, anti-divine restraints, not wide-scale destruction. Die, human! The man DxD roared and conjured a spear of light, hurling it at Akira with all his remaining strength. He had clearly forgotten Akira had just reduced their hideout to dust and nearly killed them in one blow. The gap in power was unmistakable. A single golden chain shot out and crushed the spear mid-flight. Without hesitation, it pierced through DxD's chest. I'm possible. The disbelief and fear in his eyes lingered even after the life left his body. Kuoh and Middle didn't even get the chance to scream. The remaining chains shot forward, eliminating them instantly. At this point, Akira, now at level 5, was already on par with a high-class fallen angel. Meanwhile, DxD and the others were mere low-class foot soldiers. Ding! You have gained 1% template inheritance. You have gained 1% template inheritance. You have gained 1% template inheritance. A total of 3% added instantly. However, one more prey still remained hidden somewhere beneath the rubble. Chapter 31, The Governor of the Fallen Angels. Chapter 31, The Governor of the Fallen Angels. Ha, ha! There's no way I'm dying in a place like this. From beneath the shattered ruins of the old church, a white-haired man clawed his way out, dragging his mangled body across the rubble. Both of his legs were crushed, nothing but shredded flesh and bone, and his entire body was riddled with deep wounds. And yet, somehow, he was still alive. Clinging stubbornly to life like a cockroach that refused to die. Even Akira had to admit, the man's sheer tenacity was almost impressive. In the original story, this man was one of the early villains. He had once worked with Rainare and later participated in the Holy Sword incident triggered by Kokabeel. Back then, he was defeated by Chiba's Holy Sword and Zenovia's Durandal. Later, his body was modified by the Cow's Brigade into some kind of monster, but he still ended up being sliced to pieces by a much stronger Chiba. His name was Fried Selzen, a former exorcist prodigy, who'd become famous by the age of 13 for his achievements in slaying devils and monsters. But he showed no mercy toward humans either. From the beginning, he had no faith or belief, only hatred toward all things inhuman and an unhealthy obsession with battle. His end was tragic. Then again, for a lunatic like him, perhaps it was more merciful than he deserved. You reek of devil filth. You must die, die. The moment he laid eyes on Akira, Fried's first reaction wasn't fear, it was rage. His eyes burned with hatred and madness. He really was insane. Completely unhinged. You poor soul, allow me to end your suffering. A surge of blue lightning exploded from Akira's hand. A thunderclap echoed through the sky as the divine bolt struck Fried down in an instant. His life vanished without a sound. Ding! You have gained 1% template inheritance. Just as expected. Despite his stubborn endurance, Fried was ultimately low-level trash. Against Akira's current power, he never stood a chance. Clap clap clap. Suddenly, the slow sound of clapping echoed through the air. Akira turned sharply, immediately activating his detection skill. In less than a second, he sensed it, a dense magical presence, monstrous in scale. One that instinctively sent chills down his spine. A figure stepped out from behind the crumbling ruins, and Akira's expression turned grim. The man wore a loose, grey-brown kimono. A single lock of messy blonde hair hung over his forehead. He looked like a lazy, middle-aged man who'd given up on life and decided to cosplay a monk. But Akira knew exactly who this man was, not from his face, but from the overwhelming aura he exuded. Compared to him, Akira was nothing more than an insect. The difference in power was immeasurable. "Young man," the man spoke, his voice lazy and indifferent. "You went and slaughtered all those fallen angels here. Do you have some kind of grudge against them?" "No grudge." "Then your actions are difficult to justify." "I don't need to justify them." "Well, you're definitely making things complicated for me, you know." The man scratched his head like an overworked employee thinking about his overdue report. And yet, Akira caught it. Beneath the casual tone, there was a sharp, undeniable surge of killing intent. No matter what excuses one could make, the fallen angels Akira had just slaughtered were still under this man's command. Even if he didn't care about them personally, killing them right in front of their governor was practically asking for death. That's right, this man was Azazel, Governor General of the Fallen Angels. The sole leader of the Central Grigori Organization, Watchers of God's Children, and a being on par with the Mu of the Devils and the Seraphim of the Angels. Akira had always wondered, after reaching the level of high-class devil, just how far was the gap to someone of Mu class. Now, standing face to face with one, he understood. Even though the gap between high class and Mu class was technically only one tier, the difference in power was indescribable. Even at the peak of high class, if one hadn't stepped into the Mu realm, they were still just standing at the edge of an endless chasm. Azazel narrowed his eyes. You seem tense. You already know who I am." "I wouldn't dare say that. I'm just a bit sensitive to power." "That's a good trait to have. Means you've got potential." Without warning, a crushing pressure slammed down on Akira. The sheer force of it bent his knees, and the air around him warped from the overwhelming magic power. They weren't even fighting yet. This was just the casual presence of a being from another realm entirely. In the anime, Azazel was portrayed as a laid-back, dependable guy, a teacher who cared for his students like a doting uncle. But that was after the peace treaty between the three factions had been signed. Right now, Akira was just an unknown human. He had no political backing. And he'd just wiped out 3 of Azazel's subordinates right in front of him. It was easy to forget, but Azazel was a veteran of the 3-faction war and he'd survived it. Boost! The crimson gauntlet materialized on Akira's arm once again. With the power boost, the weight pressing down on him lessened barely. "Hey!" Azazel tilted his head. "That's the boosted gear? So, you're the current Red Dragon Emperor?" A flicker of interest lit up his lazy eyes. If Azazel had been planning to kill Akira a moment ago, that intent quickly began to fade. The current wielder of the White Dragon Emperor was, after all, his own adopted son. The boy was a bit rebellious, but Azazel cared deeply for him. And he knew deep down the boy would be furious if his eternal rival was killed before they had the chance to fight. Better not poke the dragon, as they say. Boost! While Azazel remained lost in thought, Akira continued powering up. "Drake, with this much energy, I should be able to reach balance breaker now, right?" "You can, partner. But you've never done it before. Are you sure you want to try it here and now?" "Of course. We're facing the governor of the fallen angels, a Mu class being. If I don't go all out now, I'm dead. Then use me to your heart's content. Show him everything. Let's do this, Drake. Balance breaker. Balance breaker. Drake's voice roared like a dragon's cry, and Akira's magical power skyrocketed. His energy surged outward, forming a crimson suit of armor over his entire body, sleek, sharp, and radiating power. Like a knight clad in dragon scales, Akira now stood tall, draped in the legacy of countless red dragon emperors before him. A pair of magnificent dragon wings spread wide from his back, glowing faintly with magical energy. Boosted gear scale male. Akira clenched his fist. This was his first time donning the true armor of the Red Dragon Emperor. And across from him stood one of the greatest threats in the world, Azazel. Chapter 32, Balance Breaker. Chapter 32, Balance Breaker. Seeing Akira enter Balance Breaker mode, Azazel couldn't hide his surprise. After all, Balance Breaker was the peak state of a sacred gear, an advanced realm that only a rare few ever reached in their lifetime. Even among the countless sacred gear users around the world, many never came close to touching that power. And yet, at such a young age, Akira had already awakened the balance breaker of a Longinus. Without a doubt, he was a top-tier genius. Remarkable. I imagine Vali, the White Dragon Emperor's eternal rival, would be very interested in you. Despite his words, Azazel remained calm. Even if Akira had activated the balance breaker of a Longinus powerful enough to slay gods or even Mu, that was still just potential. Theoretical strength meant nothing if one couldn't wield it fully. Partner, this is your first time entering balance breaker, so the mode is still incomplete. At best, it'll only last 10 minutes. 10 minutes, hey. That's more than enough. Akira stared into Azazel's eyes. Within those 10 minutes either he would escape this place, or he would die by Azazel's hand. But what Azazel truly intended still remained a mystery. If he was serious about killing him, Akira would have no choice but to fight with everything he had. Besides, the boosted gear still held one more stage above balance breaker Juggernaut Drive, the true power of the Red Dragon Emperor. However, that power was a double-edged sword. It devoured the user's life force, and if one failed to control it, they would either perish, or go insane. Akira hadn't reached that edge yet. But it wasn't impossible. If pushed to the brink, he and Drake could forcibly trigger Juggernaut Drive. But the risk was immense. A single misstep, and he would be annihilated. Boost! 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 Drake's voice echoed with each pulse of power, and Akira's magical energy surged rapidly. Looks like you're seriously planning to attack me. In that case, I'll respond in kind. Azazel gave a small smile. Slowly, he ascended into the air, and at the same time, 12 pitch-black wings unfurled from his back, the symbol of a high-ranking fallen angel. A deafening explosion roared through the air as the ground cracked beneath Akira's feet. Crackling blue lightning gathered around his body, then burst forth like a storm, striking toward Azazel from all directions. Lightning? Hey? Interesting. Unlike Akira, whose expression was grave, Azazel seemed to be enjoying himself. He danced between the bolts with ease, weaving through the storm like a child playing in the rain. But then his eyes narrowed. Something felt off. Without hesitation, he vanished from his spot. In the very next moment, several golden chains materialized from thin air and pierced the space where he had just stood. Unfortunately, they missed. A chain-type sacred gear, hey? So you have 2 sacred gears? What ridiculous luck! This time, even Azazel looked genuinely surprised. It wasn't unheard of for someone to possess 2 sacred gears, though it was rare. But a Longinus and another sacred gear in one person? That was something else entirely. Boost! 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 Akira's power climbed even higher, violently overflowing. His body trembled as if it were about to rupture under the pressure. If the human body was a vessel, then magical power was the water. And right now, Akira's vessel was spilling over. Lightning barrage thunderstorm assault. Dozens of golden magic circles flared to life in all directions. From within each one, glowing golden chains burst forth, wreathed in crackling blue lightning. What a spectacular sight! Even I can feel the threat behind this attack. Very well, my turn. Azazel pulled out a strange device that looked like a giant nail, with a violet gemstone embedded at its tip. The moment it lit up, a solemn voice echoed from the gem, "Balance breaker." In an instant, golden armor enveloped Azazel's body. Its design was similar to Akira's, but the colors were distinctly different. Akira's armor was crimson, adorned with emerald green gems. Azazel's was gold, with a deep violet jewel shining at its center. This feeling. Fafnir? He turned Fafnir into a sacred gear. Drake's voice trembled with disbelief. Clearly, he recognized the power housed within Azazel's gear. Fafnir, the Golden Dragon King, one of the 5 Dragon Kings. Known for his obsession with collecting treasures from across the world. His iconic gold color now adorned Azazel, having formed a contract and been sealed into one of the governor's custom-made sacred gears. Comfortable enough, but still far from perfect. With his 12 dark wings spread wide and his golden armor glowing, Azazel evaluated his own creation. This was his masterpiece, his personal project. Yet, it was still unfinished. There were flaws he hadn't yet resolved. A low mechanical hum filled the air as Akira launched another barrage. Golden chains erupted once again, hurling themselves at Azazel like a divine storm. The sound of metal colliding echoed across the sky. "You're a bit too hasty." Azazel met the assault with a golden weapon in his hands, a massive twin-bladed spear that shimmered with holy radiance. It looked like a grand variation of the light spears used by the Grigori. "Drag. Let's go all in. Channel everything into this one attack. Partner, your body's at its limit. You've already overloaded it. If you push further, your body will break." "Break? I was born of the earth, so long as I'm connected to it, I won't fall apart." "So that's it, the power of the earth is reinforcing your body. That's why it's still holding together. This is our gamble, Drag." "Haha. You're insane, partner. But I like it." Boost. 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 3 more boosts. Akira's body cracked, his veins tore, blood seeping from the seams of his armor. But with his feet planted firmly on the ground, he drew on the power of the earth, slowly repairing the damage within. Let the stars light up the heavens, heavenly chains. With a metallic roar, a colossal chain manifested behind Akira. It tore through the air like a divine spear, hurling itself toward Azazel with overwhelming force. Chapter 33, Surviving Death. Chapter 33, Surviving Death. At the moment, Akira still couldn't perform a true name release on his noble phantasm. But since Enkidu Heaven's chain was a noble phantasm rooted in Gaia's will, he could still manipulate its shape and behavior freely. What's that? A second sacred gear. Azazel's voice held a spark of interest. Chains began manifesting all around him. Not the massive ones from earlier, but dozens of mid-sized golden chains, weaving through the air and surrounding the area like a net. Azazel narrowed his eyes. Oh! Only now did he realize it. He'd let his guard down. The entire battlefield had become a trap, he had no escape. In that instant, a massive chain surged forth, streaking toward Azazel like divine judgment. He raised his light spear to block it, but the moment they clashed, the weapon cracked and shattered under the sheer force of the blow. The colossal chain struck Azazel's body head-on and slammed him into the ground, shaking the very earth. The impact left a crater wide and deep, dust rising in thick clouds. Heaven's chain was an anti-thaumaturgy noble phantasm, a divine restraint system born from Gaia's will, or more specifically, Orario, the counter-force of the planet. Within the Type Moon world, this noble phantasm manifested as golden chains that judged and restrained those deemed threats to humanity or the world itself. The more dangerous the target, the greater their destructive potential, the stronger the chain's binding force and destructive capability. Even without activating its true name, Heaven's chain still retained its essence. As an extension of Gaia's will, it passed judgment impartially. Akira dropped to one knee, gasping. His balance breaker was already gone. The crimson armor had vanished, and his body was bloodied and torn in multiple places. Hairline cracks covered his limbs, and blood dripped steadily from his wounds. But even so, his feet remained firmly planted on the ground. From beneath him, the energy of the earth flowed gently into his body. Slow and steady, but undeniably healing him from the inside. As long as he stood on solid ground, Akira's connection to the earth allowed him to absorb its strength. His regenerative ability when fully activated was nearly peerless. That was why he'd dared to gamble his life. So long as he wasn't killed instantly, he could still recover. Footsteps echoed through the dust and smoke. From the crater, a figure emerged, tattered and dirt-streaked, but very much alive. Azazel climbed out slowly, brushing off fragments of stone. His golden fallen dragon armor was nearly destroyed. His clothes were ripped and barely clinging to his frame. Yet despite the damage, his body showed almost no injuries. "It looks like there's still a lot you need to work on," Azazel muttered, stretching his shoulders. "That was a solid attack, Red Dragon Emperor. The combination of your two sacred gears, impressive. Even I'll admit that." He exhaled lightly. "But, the difference between us is still too vast. Boosted gear may be the sacred gear capable of killing gods, but overcoming someone beyond your tier is never that simple." He looked down at Akira, a smirk forming on his lips. "Are you giving up now? If so, I might need to lower my expectations of you." "Give up?" "As if," Akira replied, his breathing heavy. "You just happened to be born a few centuries earlier than me. Give me time, and I'll surpass you. Governor-General of the Fallen Angels." Azazel laughed softly. "Confident, aren't we? Or is it arrogance? I've earned the right to be arrogant." "Ha! Maybe so." Azazel's gaze softened for a moment. As a long-time researcher and enthusiast of sacred gears, he deeply understood the meaning behind their creation. The God of the Old Testament had scattered these artifacts throughout humanity for a reason. Because, within humans lies infinite potential. However small, however fragile, they could still perform miracles when pushed into a corner. Sacred gears ran on willpower. And of all the races in existence, only humans had the ability to turn near impossible odds into reality. Because they were weak, because they had nothing, they were capable of grasping everything. The lower they stood on the hierarchy of power, the more sacred gears resonated with their resolve. That determination became the perfect fuel. And in the process, the sacred gear evolved alongside its wielder. That was why God had entrusted them to humanity. To harness that potential so the sacred gears themselves could continue to grow. Take the ultimate manifestation, balance breaker. A sacred gear held by two different users would yield two completely different forms of balance breaker, tailored by the will and desire of its wielder. And those forms would be remembered, recorded within the sacred gear itself. They grew by absorbing the dreams, the hatred, the ambition of their wielders. That was the path of evolution. That was why Azazel loved sacred gears so much. Because within them lay infinite possibilities. "Yes, the gap between us is massive, Governor-General," Akira said. "You've done more than enough, human," Azazel replied with a nod. "So, what now?" Akira asked calmly. "Are you going to kill me?" Though his tone was light, he was already speaking to Drake in his mind. If Azazel attacked, he would activate his final card. Even if he died, he'd drag this monster down with him. Azazel smiled. "No. I'm not going to kill you." Akira raised an eyebrow. "Oh. You're the current generation's Red Dragon Emperor. And you already have your destined rival. The White Dragon Emperor." "Correct." He's your opponent, not me. So I'll leave you alive. I see. So the White Dragon Emperor is on your side now. You catch on quick. Thanks for the compliment. Azazel chuckled. He could tell that Akira had been wary of him from the start. As the foster father of the current White Dragon Emperor, he was well aware of the dangers of Juggernaut Drive, the final evolution of both boosted gear and divine dividing. He didn't know whether Akira had reached that level, but it was obvious this boy still had a trump card ready to detonate. That look in his eyes, it wasn't the gaze of someone who'd given up. It was someone who still had a plan. Suddenly, Azazel turned his gaze to the distance. Looks like all the noise we made is starting to draw attention. He could feel the presence of multiple auras heading toward them. After one last glance at Akira, Azazel turned away and vanished into the sky. Only after he was truly gone did Akira exhale in relief. Having your life in someone else's hands, it was a terrifying feeling. He had felt safe briefly after unlocking boosted gear. But now? Now he could feel it again. That hunger. The bottomless craving for more power. Akira! Are you all right? A voice cried out across the battlefield. Several figures flew toward him through the air. The one leading them was Himejima Akeno. The moment she saw Akira, his body drenched in blood, clearly badly wounded, she flew to him without hesitation. Even without witnessing the battle firsthand, the residual magical energy lingering in the air and the destruction all around them told her everything. She didn't need explanations. Just one look at Akira was enough. Chapter 34, Akeno Regret. Chapter 34, Akeno's Regret. Rias could barely process what she was seeing. In front of her stood Akira, his body drenched in blood, his breathing ragged, wounds visible from head to toe. Just what kind of enemy had he faced to end up like this? She still hadn't fully grasped how powerful he really was, but from what he had shown, it was clear that Akira's strength could rival that of a high-class devil. Perhaps, he was even stronger than her, though Rias hated to admit it. And that terrifying wave of magic earlier, overwhelming enough to make even her freeze for a second, it hadn't come from just anyone. For such an immense force to appear in a quiet place like Kuoh, it made Rias deeply uneasy. Her territory was no longer under her control. I'm still too weak. The words escaped Akira's lips in a hushed voice as Akeno supported his broken body. If what had just happened could even be called a battle, it was more of a one-sided demonstration. Azazel hadn't fought seriously at all. He had only toyed with Akira, testing him, observing the fusion of sacred gears. The difference in their strength was immeasurable, like a mortal standing before a mutir existence. Akira! Akeno whispered, her voice filled with worry. She wanted to comfort him, to say something, anything that might soothe him. But how could she say he was strong, when he stood there half collapsed, drenched in blood? Still, the encounter hadn't been meaningless. Just as Azazel vanished from sight, a notification echoed softly in Akira's mind. Ding! You have obtained 5% template inheritance. A full 5% increase. It seemed to be the result of facing off against Azazel. Though the Governor-General had chosen to retreat, it couldn't be called a win. But Akira hadn't lost either. In fact, every wound on his body now was the result of pushing his own power far beyond its limit. If not for his perfect form, his body might have crumbled apart long before Azazel even touched him. With this, his template inheritance progress had reached 43.1%. Though it had passed the 40% mark, he didn't unlock any new skills. His strength had increased slightly, but nothing game-changing. Akira figured the next big breakthrough might come at 50%, or perhaps even later. During this time, several of his injuries had already begun to heal. He no longer needed Akeno's support to stand. Akira, Rias asked, her tone firm. Who did you fight just now? As the ruler of this territory, she had to know. Azazel. Governor-General of the Fallen Angels, Akira replied. Rias stiffened. Azazel? Why would he appear in Kuoh? And even end up clashing with you? I'm not sure. But I think, it was because he saw me kill one of his fallen angels here. You killed a fallen angel in this city. Yet. Rias pressed her hand to her forehead. You really are something else. She didn't even know what to say anymore. Though Kuoh was her territory, she had known for a while that fallen angels were also active here. No matter how tightly one tried to control a region, there would always be interference from other powers. This town was no exception. She wasn't particularly fond of the fallen angels skulking around, but her position as the sister of a meant she couldn't act recklessly. One misstep, and war could break out between two races. Fallen angels. The words hung in the air. Akeno, who had been silently standing beside Akira, visibly flinched. Even though she had severed ties with her father long ago, Azazel had come to see her on several occasions. They never met face to face, but she knew he was watching over her. Azazel had never tried to hide it. In fact, he had almost openly admitted their relationship more than once. And now, Akeno was convinced. It was her fault. Azazel had come to Kuoh because of her. Because she existed here. Because of her, he had encountered Akira who had killed one of his subordinates. And because of that, a battle broke out. The more she thought about it, the more she felt disgusted with herself. With the fallen angel blood flowing through her veins. She was a curse. Her very birth had doomed her mother slaughtered by her own clan because she gave birth to a half-breed. And now, the person she had just started growing closer to Akira had nearly died fighting her father's superior. All of it, to Akeno, felt like a long chain of sins and consequences. I'm sorry. She murmured. Her voice trembled as she lowered her head, still holding Akira upright. Hey? What are you apologizing for? Akira asked, confused. It's my fault, all of this, it's because of me. Akeno, what are you talking about? It's all my fault. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She kept apologizing, her shoulders trembling. Akira looked at her, bewildered. None of this had happened in the original storyline. His fight with Azazel was entirely of his own making. So why did she think she was to blame? Hey, calm down. It's all right, Akeno. I'm sorry. Now the tears were falling. Quietly, drop by drop, they rolled down her cheeks. Everyone nearby was caught off guard. Especially Rias. She had never seen Akeno break like this. Akeno, what's going on? Rias asked. Azazel. He must have come to Kuoh because of me. I'm sorry. For a moment, silence hung in the air. Akira and Rias exchanged glances. And then, understanding dawned. Akeno was the daughter of Barakil, one of the top officers among the fallen angels. Practically Azazel's right hand. Given that, it did make sense for Azazel to come here to check on her. Hey, Akira said softly. This wasn't your fault. Azazel came because I killed Rainare, one of his subordinates. Really? Of course. He didn't come here because of you. I killed one of his officers. Then I killed 3 more fallen angels right in front of him. That's why he came after me. Whether that was entirely true or not didn't matter. What mattered was calming Akeno down. This sadistic woman known for her playful cruelty was actually extremely fragile. Especially when it came to emotional wounds, she was more vulnerable than anyone. Her mother's death had haunted her since childhood. Because her mother had refused to kill her a child born from a fallen angel, her own relatives had murdered her. And Akeno had never stopped blaming herself. Chapter 35, Akeno and Rias Conversation. Chapter 35, Akeno and Rias Conversation. That night, Akira truly understood the meaning of the word torture. His injuries were quite severe, so he was brought back to the apartment shared by Rias and Akeno. And for some reason, whether it was intentional or just a coincidence, the one who took care of him all night was none other than Akeno. Maybe it was Rias's way of tightening the bond between Akira and their group through Akeno, or perhaps there was another reason entirely. One thing was certain: Akeno didn't leave his side for even a second. Even when she finally went to sleep, it was right next to him on the bed. Just imagine a stunningly beautiful girl, with divine-level curves and features, sleeping next to you. For Akira, this wasn't a dream come true. It was the sweetest form of mental torment. Especially on a quiet night like this, the gentle fragrance of the girl beside him stirred every corner of his youthful soul. And so, Akira spent a night of both agony and ecstasy. Only when dawn approached did he finally drift into sleep, halfway between dream and consciousness. The next morning, Akeno was the first to awaken. Her eyes settled on Akira's sleeping face, and for a moment, she was completely captivated. His long greenish hair was splayed across the pillow, framing a peaceful, handsome face. The scene looked almost unreal, like a male version of Sleeping Beauty. There was something about Akira's unique aura, combined with the soft haze of affection in Akeno's eyes, that made the sight nearly overwhelming. Knock, knock. Akeno, are you two awake? A gentle knock came from outside. Akeno instinctively got up, quietly opened the door, and quickly motioned for Rias to stop knocking. Once she was sure Akira wasn't disturbed, she slowly and carefully shut the door behind her. Rias raised an eyebrow. What's with her this early in the morning? He's still asleep? Rias asked. Akeno nodded. Yes. Judging from how panicked you looked, you must have done something, didn't you? What could I have done? Don't play dumb. That look on your face, it was like someone who almost got caught red-handed. Don't accuse me of something baseless, Rias. Fine, fine. I won't press it. Rias had known Akeno for years. But this was the first time she had seen her act so attentive toward a guy. And not just that, she clearly remembered how emotionally unstable Akeno had become last night. Thinking back on all that, yeah, it made sense why she was acting like this now. The two girls made their way to the living room. Akeno moved with graceful efficiency, boiling water, preparing tea, and setting out sandwiches. In this household, it was always Akeno who handled domestic work. Rias, having grown up as a noble princess, was utterly useless with house chores. And since she refused to bring maids from the underworld into the human world, all household responsibilities naturally fell to Akeno. Akeno. You've really fallen for him, haven't you? Rias took a sip of tea, her gaze soft as she looked at her best friend. Well, feelings aren't something you can control. I didn't expect to fall for my own cowherd either. So you're not even trying to hide it anymore? In front of you, Rias? What's the point of lying? You're right. We're best friends, and we always will be. Yet. Forever. They both smiled. A bond like this could only exist between true soulmates, two women who had shared joys and wounds for years. To Rias, Akeno wasn't just a servant or subordinate. She was family, irreplaceable family. And to Akeno, ever since the day Rias saved her, she had decided to stay by her side for the rest of her life. Rias. I actually think Akira would be a good choice. What do you mean? Your arranged marriage with the Phoenix family is getting closer. Their house is growing more powerful, more ambitious, and more aggressive about the engagement. I'm not going to marry Riser. Even if it's a political arrangement. But Rias, to oppose the will of your family, you'll need enough strength. What are you getting at? Why have you been so insistent on making Akira your pawn? Because, he'd make our team stronger for the raiding game. Rias trailed off mid-sentence. And in that moment, she understood what Akeno truly meant. Yes. Why had she been so obsessed with turning Akira into her pawn? There was no guarantee Akira would agree. And the truth was, he now had two sacred gears. His power had grown tremendously. He even went toe-to-toe with Azazel, the Governor-General of the Fallen Angels. Even though he had been allowed to leave afterward, that alone proved how dangerous Akira had become. There were limits to evil peace transplantation. Someone whose power exceeded that of a king could not be reincarnated as a piece. With Akira's current power level, even Rias herself wasn't sure she could turn him into a pawn anymore. That was why she had panicked and asked Akeno to get closer to him, though she hadn't expected Akeno to truly fall for him. But now, Akeno had laid it all bare. Opposing an arranged marriage didn't have to be a one-way street. If Akira became her boyfriend, then he would have a legitimate reason to challenge Riser Phoenix for her sake. Not to mention his status as the Red Dragon Emperor alone was more than enough to silence most political opposition. Wait. Akeno, don't you like him? Rias, didn't we promise that we'd be sisters for life? For some reason, this sounds like you're matchmaking your own boyfriend. Rias gave her a bewildered look. It might be a logical solution, but emotionally, she felt like she was the one getting the short end of the stick. But then again, maybe not. Akira's strength was unquestionable. His looks? Easily among the most handsome guys she'd ever met. And most importantly, he had no family. His finances were average at best. That meant if they ever got married, he'd become part of the Gremory family. If Rias really became the next head of House Gremory, Akira would be the one supporting her in managing it all. Just imagining that future brought a smile to her face. All right. We'll be sisters for life. I'm happy to hear that, Rias. The two of them smiled with genuine happiness. But, they had both forgotten one important thing: the person they were talking about, Akira, hadn't said anything yet. Chapter 36, Restricting Drake's Surveillance. Chapter 36, Restricting Drake's Surveillance. By the time Akira slowly opened his eyes, the sun had already reached its peak in the sky. His injuries, which had been severe the day before, were now nearly fully healed. Physically, he was fine. But mentally, the memory of what happened last night lingered like a thorn in his mind. It was torture, sweet, seductive torture. He couldn't help but feel a bit of regret. Why didn't he do something when he had the chance? A girl had willingly climbed into bed with him. She had revealed her most vulnerable self, laying bare her trust in him. That wasn't something a girl would show just to anyone. Yes, it sounded like the kind of regret you feel only after the moment had passed. But what was done was done. Wallowing in it now wouldn't change a thing. Partner, are you really human? Drake? Why are you suddenly speaking up? One night. Just one night. Your wounds were borderline fatal, yet you're already fully recovered? Are you sure you're not secretly a divine hybrid or something? Of course I'm human. That's beyond question. Hard to believe. I'm starting to wonder if you're some demigod's illegitimate child. Don't just throw out wild accusations. Also, Drake, can you actually communicate with the outside world whenever you want? Even when I'm asleep or unconscious? Yes. I can. Why do you ask, partner? Why do you sound so casual about it? Akira's expression darkened immediately. Inside his own body resided a dragon, a sentient one, at that, who could watch him at any time, under any circumstance, even when he was sleeping or passed out. He hadn't thought too deeply about it before. But after what happened last night, he couldn't ignore it anymore. If, someday, he was getting intimate with someone he cared about, wouldn't that mean Drake would be there? Watching? The thought alone was enough to make his skin crawl. Partner, is something wrong? Drake? Tell me honestly, can I cut off your surveillance from the outside world? Hey? Why do you suddenly want to do that? Because it makes me uncomfortable. Knowing that you're constantly watching every little thing I do, it creeps me out. You get what I mean, right? I'm a guy, and you're also a guy, I mean a male dragon. Partner. Could Drake actually understand? When you thought about it, maybe he could. Imagine having another male consciousness living inside your body, watching your every move, even your private moments. No one would be okay with that. But of course, Drake didn't say a word in acknowledgement. Cutting him off would be the same as locking him in solitary confinement, a prison of silence. A low, metallic clank echoed through the inner world. Sacred silver chains shimmered into existence, coiling out of nowhere. They writhed like serpents of divine judgment, spiraling around the space where Drake's consciousness resided. The radiant links tightened, forming a barrier of suppression that isolated him from the outer world. Partner Akira. What are you doing? In the vast space of Akira's mind, Drake, now in his true form as a massive red dragon, swung his head around, alarmed as the chains latched onto the walls of his domain. His voice, for the first time, failed to reach beyond the seal. A gentle hum of divine energy surged. Akira's consciousness emerged, manifesting before Drake's eyes, as if he had descended from the heavens. His steps echoed as he approached the bound dragon. Drake glared at him with burning intensity. Even within this realm, he retained his majestic form, the Red Dragon Emperor in his purest state. Sorry, Drake. I know this might seem unfair to you. But as a dragon spirit sealed within a sacred gear, I believe it's better if you stay quietly where you are. You intend to imprison me? To control me? It's not about control. I just don't want my personal life to feel like it's being broadcasted 24/7. I am one of the two heavenly dragons. The Red Dragon Emperor. Don't act high and mighty just because you're my host. Everything you have comes from me, Shin Akira. Is that so? Then that just makes things easier for me. Akira's tone was calm but resolute. Yes, the boosted gear was absurdly powerful. His survival yesterday had a lot to do with the fact that he was the Red Dragon Emperor, which convinced Azazel to spare him. But if Drake's awareness could peek at anything from within his body and talk to the outside world freely, it was beyond unnerving. Just imagine, if last night he had actually done something with Akeno. That would have made Drake a front-row spectator. Worse, if it happened often, it would feel like being live-streamed during intimate moments. What if Drake started giving real-time commentary? That would be the definition of mental trauma. Sorry, Drake. I'll lift the seal during battles. But when it comes to my daily life, it stays like this. Akira, are you truly going through with this? You sound like we're about to become enemies. In all my centuries, not a single host has ever treated me like this, Shin Akira. Then I guess I'm honored to be the first. Once you've made this choice, don't regret it. From the way you say that, it sounds like I'll come begging for your help someday. Do you think the true power of the boosted gear can be reached without me? Without me, you'll never touch its ultimate form. Seriously, Drake? You think all of my power comes from you? Akira gave a short laugh. No doubt, boosted gear was one of the strongest sacred gears in existence, a cheat code embedded in the world's system. But Shin Akira wasn't just any host. He was a wielder of the template inheritance system. If he could raise his synchronization with Enkidu alone, Akira believed that he could eventually stand at the top of the world without anyone's help. His system didn't rely on just one legacy, it granted him access to countless legendary inheritances. And over time, as he obtained more and more templates, his strength would only continue to evolve. Shin Akira. I'll be watching. I want to see if you can truly grow, without my power. Go ahead and watch, if you can. But remember this, Drake's sacred gears are tools. They were created to assist their wielders, not to spy on or interfere with their lives. As he finished speaking, Akira's presence slowly faded, vanishing from the consciousness realm. Drake stared at the spot where he had disappeared. His gaze didn't waver for a long time. Eventually, the massive red dragon lowered his body, curling into a solemn silence. Now, he was completely cut off from the outside world. And in this vast, stifling inner space, the only thing left for him was to sleep. Chapter 37, Fight me, right now. Chapter 37 Fight me, right now. Click. The door to the room creaked open slowly as Shin Akira stepped out. Even though this wasn't his first time staying in an unfamiliar place, the fact that this was the Gremory residence still made him feel slightly out of place. In the living room, Rias Gremory and Himejima Akeno were seated together on the sofa, seemingly watching a TV show. However, neither of them looked particularly focused on the screen. When Rias noticed Akira's presence, a flash of surprise crossed her face. "Hey? You're already up? Yet? About last night, thank you for the trouble." "No worries. It wasn't a big deal. But, are you still set on refusing to join my peerage? If you joined, you wouldn't have to worry about Azazel anymore." "There's no need. I'll deal with him myself." Rias let out a short sigh. His rejection, though expected, still brought a slight sting of disappointment. This was supposed to be her final invitation. Noticing that Akira was awake, Akeno stood up and made her way to the kitchen. She returned shortly with a plate of food. Considering the time, it was more accurate to call it lunch than breakfast. "Thank you," Akira said with a warm smile as he accepted the plate. Akeno gave a soft nod in return. They exchanged glances and smiles, but a subtle distance still lingered between them. Neither of them could be considered more than acquaintances just yet. The time they had spent together was far too short, and there were still many things left unspoken between them. Akeno might have been touched by Akira's actions, but it was admiration, not romantic affection. After finishing his meal, Akira looked toward Rias with a serious expression. "Rias-senpai, I have a favor to ask." "Oh? What is it?" "I want to fight your entire peerage, excluding Kaiba-Uto." "That includes you as well, Rias-senpai." Rias furrowed her brows. "Eh? Why would you want that?" "I want to grow stronger through combat. Especially against you, Rias-senpai. Your power of destruction is phenomenal. Personally, I don't mind. Akeno probably wouldn't either. But as for Konako, I can't guarantee anything." "Thank you for understanding, Rias-senpai. It's fine. Who knows, maybe I'll need your help with something even more troublesome in the future. If that time comes, I'll do everything I can." Rias gave him a faint smile. The troublesome matter she referred to wasn't just annoying, it was complicated, dangerous, and heavy with responsibility. Akira still didn't know much, and it was too early for her to tell him everything. "By the way, Rias-senpai, do you have time now? Don't tell me you want to fight right now." "That's exactly what I mean. After my fight with Azazel, I could feel something. A glimpse of a breakthrough. And I want to use your power and Akeno's to help me reach it." Rias stared at him for a moment before speaking in disbelief. "You really are a monster, aren't you?" Akeno's eyes sparkled with subtle admiration. To sense the threshold of advancement after just a single battle, that went beyond mere genius. As a daughter of the Gremory clan, Rias inherited the power of destruction from her mother. Raised within one of the most prestigious devil families, she had reached the rank of a high-class devil at a young age, thanks to exceptional guidance and abundant resources. Akira, on the other hand, was a human. With 2 sacred gears and a terrifying amount of talent, he was even younger than Rias and already possessed this level of strength. Now, he was only one step away from a breakthrough. In that case, let's change locations. This is still part of the city. If we start a battle here, things will get complicated fast. I know a place that's perfect for this." "That place, right?" Rias nodded. "Such a hassle." With a calm expression, she stood up and raised her hand. A blood-red magic circle formed in the air before them. It was the teleportation sigil of the Gremory clan, something only members of their noble bloodline could use. A special privilege granted to devils of noble rank. Just like Sana Satrai, who had her own teleportation circle as the heir of the Satrai family, Rias invoked her clan's sigil with practiced ease. In the next moment, their bodies were engulfed in magical light and vanished. Simultaneously at the outskirts of Kuoh town, in a remote mountain area, stood a grand villa owned by the Gremory family. Akira, Rias, and Akeno appeared on the villa's spacious front yard, surrounded by quiet, dense forest. This villa belonged to Rias. Maintained regularly by maids from the underworld, the place was always ready for her to visit whenever she pleased. Teleportation magic is really convenient. If you joined us, you could use it anytime you like. Even so, I'll have to decline, Rias-senpai. TCH, annoying. Rias clicked her tongue lightly. She already knew what his answer would be, but it still managed to irritate her a little. Under Rias's lead, the three of them made their way to a wide open field behind the villa. The area was clearly built for training and sparring. This is the place. Since we're up in the mountains, there's no need to worry about being seen by humans. Rias explained as she glanced back at Akira. Akeno simply smiled. This place was quite familiar to her. She often visited during the summer thanks to its cool, refreshing air. Name: Shina Akira. Status: transfer student of Kuoh Academy. Rank: Tier 5, equivalent to high-class devil. Template: Enkidu, 43.1% synchronization, noble phantasm, chains of heaven talents, consummated shape, beast king's intuition skills, blue lightning light, aura detection equipment, boosted gear items, synchronization rate, 43.1%. Only 6.9% more to reach the 50% mark. Rias was a high-class devil. Akeno was likely somewhere around mid-class. If he could defeat both of them, his strength would no doubt skyrocket. Once he reached 50% synchronization, he might gain access to even more of Enkidu's powers. Rias-senpai, Akeno. I'm ready. Akira took a deep breath, clearing his mind and focusing completely on the battle ahead. But then, Rias narrowed her eyes and spoke in a teasing tone. Wait a second. Why do you call me senpai, but you just say Akeno's name so casually? Is there something wrong with that? We're friends now, aren't we? Of course. Then just call me by my name. All right. Rias. That's much better. Akeno chuckled softly as she watched Rias sulk like a pouting child. It had been ages since she last saw this side of her friend. Probably not since her usual rivalry with Sana Satrai. Who would have thought that part of her still existed? Chapter 38, The Wisdom of the People. Body Transformation. Chapter 38, Age of Babylon. The Wisdom of the People. Body Transformation. But once the laughter subsided, the expressions on Rias Gremory and Himejima Akeno's faces gradually turned serious. This was no longer a time for jokes. A battle, no matter how friendly, was never a game. Treat it lightly, and sooner or later, someone would pay a painful price for that arrogance. Suddenly, the sky trembled. A crackling surge of divine energy tore through the air like a whip, as lightning forked violently from the heavens. Akeno was the first to make a move. With a graceful yet deadly flick of her hand, she called forth a brilliant thunderbolt that streaked downward like a spear of light. Lightning? Hey? Sorry, but if that's all you've got, it won't work on someone who also wields thunder. Akira stepped forward calmly. As if responding to Akeno's challenge, he raised one hand, summoning forth his own lightning one bathed in brilliant shades of gold and azure. Blue lightning light. His thunderclap roared into existence, colliding head-on with Akeno's. The two forces met midair, erupting in a cascade of explosive energy that rippled outward, shattering much of the training field and turning parts of the terrain into scorched ruin. Well then, let me see for myself how strong you really are, Shin Akira. With that declaration, Rias, who had remained silent until now, joined the fray. A glowing crimson magic circle, the symbol of the Gremory clan, materialized around her hand. Then, in a violent burst of red light, her power of destruction surged outward, unleashed in the form of a sweeping wave of pure annihilation aimed at Akira. But just before it struck him, something shimmered in the air. Chains. Radiant, golden chains erupted from nothingness, coiling around and deflecting the destructive wave. In the same moment, Akira leapt into the air and landed gracefully atop one of the floating chains, avoiding the attack with fluid precision. At the same time, the residual lightning from Enkidu was shattered by the overwhelming surge of Akira's blue lightning. Now airborne, his body was surrounded by an orbiting array of divine chains that rotated around him like a celestial defense system. Seeing this, Rias and Enkidu exchanged glances. Without a word, they unfurled their devil wings and ascended into the air to face him. Akira himself had the ability to fly. It wasn't even categorized as a skill in his status, it felt as natural as breathing. "You're not going to use your boosted gear?" Rias posed the question calmly, her eyes narrowing with interest. After all, boosted gear was one of the legendary sacred gears ranked among the Longinus, a divine class artifact. Who wouldn't want to see its power firsthand? "There's no need. This is enough. Confident, aren't you?" Her tone was level, but his words pricked at her pride. Rias had always been at the top. Since childhood, she strove for perfection in everything. So to have someone suggest that they could defeat her without even using their trump card, it was borderline insulting. "Enkidu, let's coordinate." "Yes, Baku." In an instant, thunder roared again. Countless bolts rained down from the clouds, lighting up the sky in blinding arcs. The entire area was engulfed in electrified fury. Akira's space of movement was restricted as Enkidu's bombardment closed in from above. At that very moment, Rias moved in. Her power of destruction took on a new form, concentrated into sharp, blade-like projectiles that flew at high speed toward Akira's blind spot. Impressive coordination, but it's not enough. With a single motion, Akira summoned even more chains from his body. They lashed out like golden serpents, dancing through the air with incredible speed. Each bolt of lightning that came close was absorbed or deflected by the heavenly chains. Since the chains weren't directly connected to his body, the electricity couldn't conduct through them to harm him. Then, Akira's body blurred into motion. He shot forward like an arrow released from a divine bow, closing the distance to Rias in the blink of an eye. This was where he truly excelled aerial combat. Even without wings, Akira's speed and reflexes were far superior to Rias's. She was strong, but air maneuvering had never been her specialty. In an instant, he was right in front of her. With a swift grab, he seized Rias's wrist and slammed her downward, sending her crashing into the ground below. "Rias!" Enkidu shouted, unleashing another barrage of lightning. But once again, Akira's blue lightning surged to life, neutralizing her attack effortlessly. No matter how fast or sudden her strikes, Akira's body moved as if guided by pure instinct. It wasn't human anymore, he reacted like a seasoned warrior with decades of combat experience burned into his very soul. With her ranged offense shattered, Enkidu, whose greatest strength was long-distance magical attacks, was suddenly vulnerable. On the ground, Rias tried to rise, but chains wrapped around her body like divine serpents, binding her before she could act. Meanwhile, Akira unleashed another wave of lightning, blasting Enkidu back and encasing her in the chains of heaven as well. Of course, this was a friendly match, not a fight to the death. Neither Rias nor Enkidu had fought with everything they had. Even so, the outcome stung. Rias, who had always stood at the top, was brought down with such ease, it left a bitter taste in her mouth. "You win." With a subdued expression, Rias admitted defeat. As prideful as she wasn't the type to deny reality. Enkidu, on the other hand, had never taken the fight seriously to begin with. Her expression barely changed from start to finish. "Ding, you have gained 3% synchronization with inherited template. Ding, you have gained 5% synchronization with inherited template. Ding, congratulations. New skill unlocked, Wisdom of the Peoples. Age of Babylon, the wisdom of the people, a noble phantasm that draws upon the accumulated ingenuity of mankind. By shaping idealized weapons from the surrounding earth, swords, spears, chains, it unleashes a large-scale barrage reflecting the wisdom and craftsmanship of humanity across eras. Though unlike the Gate of Babylon, which houses royal treasures, this ability manifests weapons born from the hands of common folk. It is a counterpart to divine or kingly authority, an earth-born arsenal shaped not by bloodline, but by the will of the people. Ding! Congratulations! New talent acquired, Body Transformation. Body Transformation grants the ability to reallocate total stats based on situational needs. The higher the user's rank, the more stats they can freely redistribute. For example, increase strength during offense, raise defense during damage intake, or switch focus depending on the battle scenario. Akira's power instantly broke through the barrier of a high class, rising into the realm of ultimate class. Not only that, he had gained a new skill and a new talent, and it left him genuinely excited. Age of Babylon, the wisdom of the people. This was a noble phantasm wielded by Enkidu during his clash with Gilgamesh. A true counterpart to the Gate of Babylon, it channeled the earth-born ingenuity of mankind, manifesting not royal treasures, but weapons forged from human struggle and survival. But body transformation was arguably even more terrifying. Even if the total stat value stayed the same, Akira could now rearrange his parameters depending on the situation. He could go all out in strength for offense, maximize defense when being attacked, or shift his stats to speed when he needed agility. It felt like turning into Ultraman Tiga with a strong form, a fast form, and a balanced form. He could switch depending on what the situation demanded. Chapter 39, A Moment to Breathe. Chapter 39, A Moment to Breathe. Name, Shin. Akira. Status, Transfer Student at Kuoh Academy Level, Tier 6 Ultimate Class Devil Template, Enkidu, 51.1% Synchronization, Noble Phantasm, Chains of Heaven Talents, Consummated Shape, Instinct of the Beast King, Body Transformation Skills, Blue Lightning, Aura Detection, The Wisdom of the People. Equipment, Boosted Gear Items, none with his synchronization now crossing the 51.1% threshold, Shin. Akira's power surged into a new realm, Ultimate Class. At the moment, he was focusing all his attention on stabilizing his newly awakened powers, adjusting to the sudden influx of strength, processing the new skills and talents that had awakened. The sensation was overwhelming, a mix of exhilaration and magical euphoria that coursed through his veins like liquid fire. On the other hand, Rias Gremory and Hajime Akeno could only stand in stunned silence, watching the young man before them. He really broke through. Rias could barely believe it. The duel had been anything but serious. It wasn't even close to a full power confrontation. Yet from that brief clash alone, Akira had pierced through the wall that countless devils spent centuries trying to overcome. In the end, Rias could only conclude one thing: Akira had probably been standing at the edge of that breakthrough ever since his fight with Azazel. And this battle had simply given him the final push he needed. But even knowing that didn't ease the discomfort stirring in her chest. As the heiress of the prestigious Gremory clan, one of the highest-ranking noble families in the underworld, Rias had received top-class education, elite training, and had inherited the power of destruction from her mother. And yet she remained a high class. Meanwhile, Akira, a human, younger than her, no family backing, no legacy, and barely a month into his life in this world, had already surpassed her. It was impossible not to feel the sting of inferiority. Once Akira finished adjusting to his new powers, he turned and released the chains of heaven that were still restraining Rias and Akeno. "Thank you, for everything," he said earnestly. "Congratulations on your breakthrough," Rias replied, her tone as neutral as she could manage. But her eyes remained shadowed and unreadable. Akira tilted his head slightly. "Did I do something wrong?" he wondered, puzzled. "I just beat her once. Surely she's not holding a grudge over that, right?" Akeno, ever perceptive, giggled softly behind her hand. As Rias's closest friend, she knew exactly what was going on. Rias wasn't angry. She was irritated and a little jealous. Few in the underworld carried as much ambition to become stronger as Rias Gremory. But because devils were long-lived beings, their growth was inherently slow, measured in decades. In contrast, humans, especially those with sacred gears, and especially those wielding a Longinus, could evolve drastically within mere months or years. "Thank you again for helping me," Akira said, bowing lightly to both of them. "Are you mocking me?" Rias asked in a flat voice. And no. I'm being completely serious. I'm genuinely grateful." Her eyes narrowed. "I'll remember that. You'll be repaying that debt, properly." Though her words were sharp, Akira could sense the subtle acknowledgement in her tone. Just then, Akeno raised 2 fingers playfully, forming a V sign toward him with a teasing smile. Yet. I owe both of you double now," Akira replied with a wry grin. With his training goal achieved and his power reaching a new peak, Akira felt a satisfying sense of accomplishment. He had officially become Tier 6 Ultimate Class. Still, to reach the next stage Mu class the road would be long. He estimated he'd need at least 70% synchronization, perhaps even more than 80% to truly unlock the potential of Enkidu's power. Oddly enough, the thought of that made his blood stir in anticipation. There was still that event looming on the horizon, the arranged marriage meeting with Riser Phoenix, the third son of the Phoenix clan. An high-class devil who had used every piece on the board in the raiding game. Most of his peerage might have been considered low tier, but their strength was nothing to scoff at. Honestly, I'm starting to look forward to that match, Akira thought with a grin. There was still some time before that day arrived. "Oi, now that you've broken through, do you have anything else on your agenda today?" Rias asked, her voice dry. "Agenda? Not really." "Then let's go home." "All right." Though he answered lightly, Akira inwardly let out a small sigh. His current apartment was a cramped 1DK unit, and his lease was almost up. It had already been a month since he arrived in this world, and honestly, it was about time he moved into something more fitting. With Rias's teleportation magic, the 3 of them returned to the Gremory residence in Kuoh City. The moment they arrived, Rias turned and called, "Akeno, I know, Buku." Akeno replied with a graceful nod, already heading toward the kitchen. In no time at all, she had prepared black tea and arranged several plates of snacks on the table. Akira observed all of this silently. He was starting to suspect that Rias might have a minor addiction to black tea. Every single time he visited, the atmosphere was exactly the same. "Oh, right Akeno," Akira said, glancing toward her. "I wanted to ask you a small favor." What kind of favor?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. Ever since the beginning, it had been Akeno who helped him publish his novels. For that alone, he already owed her quite a bit. "My lease is about to expire in a few days. Now that I'm doing better financially, I want to find a bigger place to live. But I'm still not that familiar with Kuoh City, so, do you think you could help me look for an apartment? You're even outsourcing your housing problems to others now," Akeno said with a half-exasperated smile. "Well, it helps to have connections," Akira replied with a mischievous grin. She sighed softly, shaking her head. "Fine. I'll help. Thanks a lot." Akira's face brightened instantly. Akeno could only watch him with a resigned look, lips curling upward despite herself. Rias, watching them from the far end of the table, suddenly found that the tea in her cup tasted a little more bitter than usual. "This is my house," she reminded herself. Still, as her gaze drifted to Akira, Rias nodded silently in her heart. Talented, strong, handsome, and not affiliated with any noble family. In other words, an ideal partner. And after hearing a few things from Akeno earlier, perhaps it was finally time to consider that possibility more seriously. Naturally, Akira remained completely unaware that he had already started catching the eyes of a crimson-haired heiress. Chapter 40, A Lost Nun Found. Chapter 40. A lost nun found. The dim glow of the city alley cast a long shadow over a lifeless body, an unfortunate stray devil whose chest was pierced cleanly by radiant golden chains. The chains of heaven had found their mark, silencing the creature in a single, merciless strike. Standing not far from the scene, dressed in the black uniform of Kuoh Academy, was a young man with sharp eyes. Akira. A subtle chime echoed in his mind. Ding! You have gained 0.1% synchronization with inherited template. He stared down at the fallen stray devil without emotion, letting out a silent sigh. Stray devils are getting weaker lately, and far less frequent. It was a troubling thought. The one he had just dispatched wasn't even worth considering a real opponent, barely a grunt-level threat. Over the past few weeks, the accumulated synchronization had only gone up by 1.5%, and a whole 1% of that came from the single mid-class stray devil he fought a while back. Not exactly inspiring progress. Still, there was one thing that had kept his spirits high today. Thanks to Akeno's help, he'd finally moved out of that cramped little 1DK apartment. Now, he lived in a cozy 2-story house near Kuoh Academy, surrounded by a peaceful neighborhood and even a small shopping center nearby. Not bad at all. After confirming that there were no other enemies around, Akira turned and started walking home. Hunting stray devils like this wasn't yielding much anymore. On the way back, he stopped by a small pastry shop to pick up a few slices of cake and sweet snacks. As he exited the store, a soft and hesitant voice called out from behind him. Excuse me. Would you happen to know where the church is around here? He turned around and was momentarily stunned. Standing there was a young blonde girl in a modest nun's outfit. Her hands were clasped in front of her, and her gentle expression held just a trace of anxiety. There was a warmth about her, a sincere, almost sacred presence that made her feel utterly out of place in this world. Are you talking to me? She nodded quickly and bowed politely. I'm sorry to bother you. I was just wondering, do you know where the nearest church is? Church? Are you a nun? Yes, I've just arrived in this city. My name is Asia Argento. It's a pleasure to meet you. The moment she introduced herself, Akira's eyes narrowed instinctively. Asia Argento, the former nun who was excommunicated by the church, hey? As soon as the words left his mouth, her expression stiffened and she lowered her gaze, silent. Akira scratched the back of his neck, slightly regretting his bluntness. Seriously? I was just out to grab cake. And now I've run into a main heroine. Sometimes I wonder if protagonist luck is a curse disguised as convenience. I'm sorry for disturbing you. I'll be on my way now. She bowed deeply, already turning to leave. Even after her emotional wounds had been unintentionally reopened, Asia didn't lash out or complain. She simply shouldered it and tried to walk away quiet, kind, and alone. Akira stared at her retreating figure. This girl was a true nun. To him, there were two types of nuns in the world, one the ones who'd say, that person seems to be in trouble. I should help. Two, and the ones who'd say, that poor person, why aren't you all helping? The first type was hard to find, but earned genuine respect. The second? Just irritating. Asia was clearly the first. Even when faced with a wounded devil, she would try to heal them. Her kindness was a reflection of her pure faith and, ironically, the very thing that led to her exile. Her sacred gear, Twilight Healing, also known as the Smile of the Holy Mother, had the divine ability to heal even devils or creatures of the underworld. That was why the church branded her a heretic and cast her out. Now, Japan was the only place she had left. And even then, the fallen angels only took her in to steal her sacred gear. They never cared about her. Oi, wait a section. Yes, she turned around slowly. You said you're looking for a church. Yes. Do you know where it is? Yeah, I do. Really? Then, please, could you show me the way? Thank you so much. But, even if I did show you, it'd be pointless. Hey? Why? Because that church. I already destroyed it with my own hands. And the fallen angels who were using it. I killed them too. Asia froze. Her eyes widened, staring at nothing. The world she had been desperately trying to enter, had vanished before she could even touch it. Akira looked at her expression, her silent despair, and for the first time in a while, felt a tiny pang of guilt. Maybe I was too harsh just now. Asia, was it? Yes. Can you cook and clean? I can. But only simple things like sandwiches. Back at the church, I used to clean my room by myself. Good. Starting today, you're my housekeeper. Full-time. You'll live with me, and food's on the house. No salary, though. Why you re-offering me a place? But I've been excommunicated. So what? I just need someone to help around the house. Interested? Her face lit up like the sun after a storm. Thank you so much. May God bless you. Akira raised an eyebrow. I don't believe in God. Just come with me. And don't call me sir. My name's Shin Akira. Just use that. Oh okay. Shin Akira-san. And just like that, while today's stray devil hunt had yielded nothing noteworthy, Akira had picked up a lost nun along the way. Oddly enough, that actually made him feel pretty good. After all, Asia possessed Twilight Healing, a rare healing-type sacred gear. A truly priceless ability. Good thing he didn't live in that tiny apartment anymore. The idea of squeezing into a shoebox with a girl like her would have been a social disaster waiting to happen. Imagine the rumors. 2 people, 1 cramped room. The scandal, by the time they reached his house. This is your home, Shin-san? It's so big. Asia gazed at the 2-story house with wide eyes. While not exactly a mansion, it was clear the place wasn't cheap either. Thanks to his royalties from the Orario light novel series and a little behind-the-scenes support from the Gremory household, Akira was, financially speaking, quite comfortable these days. That's enough sightseeing. Come inside. Why yes. Asia followed behind him, her steps light and hesitant. But as soon as they stepped inside the house, they were greeted by an unexpected surprise waiting for Akira. Chapter 41, A Stirring in Rias's Heart. Chapter 41, A Stirring in Rias's Heart. The moment Shin Akira stepped through the front door and neatly placed his shoes on the rack, he found an unexpected sight waiting in the living room. 3 beautiful girls were casually seated on his sofa, sipping tea as if they owned the place. None other than Rias Gremory, Hajime Akeno, and Konako Tajao. Rias was the first to greet him with a bright smile. Yo! Welcome back! You've been working hard, haven't you? Ever since forming an alliance with Akira, anything involving stray devils had more or less vanished from Rias's job list. He handled everything with such ruthless efficiency that she'd been able to save a surprising amount of time and energy. She used to take part in those missions herself. But now? She'd offloaded almost every field operation onto Akira without a second thought. What are you 3 doing here? Akira asked, raising an eyebrow. You just moved into this house, didn't you? We came to celebrate, Rias answered casually. I moved in almost a week ago. Don't get hung up on minor details like that. The way Rias brushed off his protest so shamelessly made Akira mentally question everything. Is this really the same woman they call the Madonna of Kuoh Academy? But before he could say anything else, a small, hesitant voice came from behind him. Instantly, Rias's expression shifted. Akeno's eyes sharpened as she turned toward the source of the voice. Oh, right. I almost forgot. Akira stepped aside and gently nudged the girl behind him forward. This is Asia. The blonde girl in a nun's habit stood awkwardly before them, fingers clutching the edge of her sleeves. Her expression was clearly nervous, her presence fragile. Rias's gaze instinctively focused on the outfit Asia wore. A church uniform. Her brows furrowed slightly. The church aligned with heaven was, after all, the natural enemy of devils. Akira, she was a member of the church, yet. But not anymore. She got excommunicated. Had nowhere else to go, so I took her in. Excommunicated. Hearing that, the tension on Rias's and Akeno's faces gradually eased. I am Asia Argento. It's nice to meet you all. Asia spoke softly, her head lowered respectfully. As a noble of the Gremory clan, Rias found the name oddly familiar, like something she'd heard in passing before. Nice to meet you, Asia. I'm Rias Gremory, a third year at Kuoh Academy and president of the Occult Research Club. I'm Jima Akeno, also a third year. Konako Tujao. First year. And nice to meet you. Though clearly flustered, Asia's face glowed with an innocent joy. There was something pure and sincere about her demeanor that softened even the most suspicious heart. The genuine awkwardness in Asia's voice was enough to melt the wariness that Rias and Akeno had initially felt. In fact, it began to stir a sense of affection in them instead. My Akira, I'm kind of jealous, Akeno said with her usual teasing smile. You step out for a bit and come back with an adorable little nun. Her words carried that signature sweet tone of hers, but hidden beneath it was a faint edge of jealousy, or maybe curiosity. Asia quickly panicked. I am so sorry. I didn't mean to trouble anyone. Before Akira could say a word, Asia was already apologizing profusely, her expression so apologetic it looked like she was carrying the weight of the world. Asia, it's fine. I was only joking. There's no need to worry, all right. Akeno-san, you're not mad. Just call me Akeno, okay? And no, of course I'm not mad. How could I ever be angry at someone as cute as you? In fact, I like you already. Like me? What do you mean by that? Rias, Akeno, and Konako all quickly realized something important. Asia was incredibly shy. A single compliment was enough to leave her bewildered and flustered. She was far too easy to tease. Meanwhile, Rias leaned toward Akira and whispered into his ear. Where exactly did you find her? Seriously. I was just walking back home when she asked me about the church in town. I told her the church was gone. She had nowhere to go, so I brought her here. Just like that. Rias gave him a suspicious look. What, you think I dragged her here for some other reason? No, I believe you. Still, you're really planning to take her in. Haven't you realized yet? She's a sacred gear possessor. A sacred gear? Which one? A healing type twilight healing. Also known as Smile of the Holy Mother. A healer type sacred gear. Rias's eyes lit up instantly. As a devil from one of the great noble houses and a leader in the raiding games, she understood all too well how rare and valuable healers were. Especially one with a sacred gear as unique as twilight healing. Even many high-ranking devils would kill for the chance to recruit someone like Asia. You're drooling, Akira commented, staring at her flatly. Was I that obvious? Rias quickly brushed her hair back, trying to act calm. But her serious expression returned a second later. Wait. I thought twilight healing belonged to one of the church's nuns. You're right. Asia was a nun. But they cast her out. Why? A healer-type sacred gear should have been precious to them. Why would the church go that far? Because she used her power to heal devils. That left Rias silent. But after a moment's thought, she understood. The holy powers of the church were a lower-tier version of the light wielded by angels, sacred, bright, and extremely harmful to devils. Even their medicines were more like poison to the beings of the underworld. But Asia could heal devils. From the fanatical eyes of the church, such an ability was heresy. A sin. It was no surprise they had turned on her. Rias didn't care about the dogma or politics of heaven and hell. What she saw now was a gentle girl with incredible potential and perhaps, a future companion in her peerage. Asia, meanwhile, looked far more relaxed now. Akeno's warm demeanor had helped put her at ease. Besides Akira, this was the first time someone had treated her so kindly since she'd been exiled from the church. Asia, would you consider becoming part of my peerage? Rias asked softly. If you join, we'll become like family comrades, bound by trust. Peerage. That's right. Peerage, as in, a devil's servant. Exactly. We're all devils here. At that moment, the three girls calmly unfurled their black, leathery wings. The demonic energy that filled the room wasn't overwhelming, but it was unmistakable. Asia stood frozen in place. The smile on her face vanished, replaced by wide eyes and a stunned expression. Wait, this place is a devil's house. Chapter 42, Arrangements for Asia. Chapter 42, Arrangements for Asia. Asia Argento stood frozen, unsure of what to do, as three devils stood before her. Lord, is this another trial from you for me? That was the only thought running through her mind. Raised in the church since childhood, Asia had been thoroughly taught that devils were evil beings. Even after being excommunicated and cast out, she never once harbored anger or hatred. To her, even healing a devil was a grave sin. She knew that, yet, when she saw an injured devil lying helpless before her, she couldn't turn away. Even if it was wrong, she still stepped forward without hesitation. And now, she was standing inside the base of the devils themselves. Of course, she felt overwhelmed, and more than a little afraid. Instinctively, her eyes drifted to the one person she felt she could rely on right now, Akira. Shin-san, you. I'm not a devil. I'm human. Then. Her gaze shifted to Rias Gremory, Himejima Akeno, and Konako Tajao. She looked hesitant, as if she wanted to ask something but didn't know where to begin. They're my friends. My close friends, Akira said firmly. Asia gave a small nod. If they're friends of Shin-san, then I feel relieved. Her sincerity made both Akira and the three devil girls exchange stunned glances. This girl, she's too pure. The fact that she managed to cross continents from Europe all the way to the Far East without encountering any serious trouble already felt like a miracle in itself. Rias gave Asia a gentle smile. Asia-san, what do you think? Asia lowered her head slightly. But I don't want to become a devil. If I do, I won't be able to pray to God anymore, or embrace the faith I believe in. Rias tried to persuade her. Asia, you've already been cast out by the church. The God you worship has forsaken you. Why hold on so tightly to that faith? Asia shook her head slowly. No, this is just another trial from the Lord. O Lord, please forgive their sins. Unwavering, even now. Asia remained true to herself. Her faith might not be the strongest in the world, but among humankind, it was one of the purest. She was a genuine believer, her heart unstained by malice, and the light of her faith, the God she worshipped, was the only beacon she clung to. Ugh! Ow! MMMGH! Suddenly, Rias, Akeno, and Konako all winced at the same time. Their bodies trembled slightly. To devils, even a blessing from a pure-hearted believer could be a form of pain. This was one of their greatest weaknesses. Devils had little to no resistance against holy power. Whether it be holy water, divine light, or sacred objects like crosses, even high-class or ultimate-class devils remained vulnerable to such forces. In the original story, Rias once lost a rating game to Riser Phoenix, which forced her into an unwanted engagement. At that time, Issei Hyudo attempted to stop the wedding, and it was only with holy water that he managed to wound Riser, a high-class devil. It had nothing to do with personal strength. Even a regular human could harm Riser just by dousing him with holy water. Asia gasped. Ah! I'm so sorry. I forgot you're devils. She quickly bowed, clearly distressed by their pained expressions. It's all right. It's not your fault, Asia, Rias replied gently. Rias wasn't the type to blame others without reason. As a former nun, it was only natural for Asia to offer prayers and blessings. It was practically a reflex. She had no ill intent. Still, Rias felt disappointed. She'd hoped to bring Asia into her peerage. Watching from the side, Akira let out a soft sigh. Rias, you weren't being a little too hasty, were you? Rias raised an eyebrow. What do you mean by that? You just met her, and now you're already asking her to join your peerage. Anyone would hesitate unless they were some guy easily swayed by your looks. Ugh. Rias fell silent for a moment, then quietly admitted he had a point. She really had rushed it. But it wasn't entirely her fault. This girl possessed the smile of the Holy Mother. No matter where she went, someone would definitely try to recruit or exploit her. If she didn't act quickly, others might. Anyway, about Asia's school enrollment, leave that to me. Enrollment? School. Yeah. What else could a girl her age do if not attend school? We can place her in the same class as Konako, that way Konako can keep an eye on her too. As he spoke, Akira glanced over at Konako. The petite girl gave a small nod in agreement. If you want her to eventually join your peerage, then start by building a real relationship with her. Fine. I get it. I'll take care of everything concerning Asia, Rias said with a nod, accepting the responsibility. Shin-san, Rias-san, about school. At your age, school's the best place to be. Make friends, enjoy youth, live your days the way you deserve. Not locked away somewhere praying to God all day and night, Akira told her. Asia looked at him, slightly miffed. Shin-san, even if you don't believe in God, that doesn't mean you should talk like that. I don't believe in God, Akira said casually. Asia pouted, cheeks puffing out adorably. She looked like a small hamster sulking. Don't mind him, Asia-chan. He's a stubborn guy who always wants to be in control, Akeno said with a soft smile. Akeno-san. Just call me Oni-san. Akeno. Oni-san. Good girl. Akeno's smile grew even warmer, her maternal instincts overflowing as she gazed at Asia's innocent face. Meanwhile, Akira simply smiled at the sight. To him, having Asia join Rias's peerage wasn't a bad outcome. Becoming part of Rias's peerage meant full protection. Rias came from a noble devil household, one of the highest ranking at that. She was the younger sister of the current Lucifer, one of the 4 great Satans. By joining Rias's peerage, Asia would gain a place of safety. Night fell, and dinner that evening was lively. Asia sat at the table with them, one more pair of chopsticks added to the group. After dinner, both Rias and Akeno returned to their homes. After all, school awaited them the next day. Konako, however, stayed behind. That was Akira's request. Since Asia had just arrived, she needed someone familiar nearby, and there was no one more fitting than Konako. And so, night slowly swallowed the city in its silence. Time passed, and the hour grew late. In his room, Akira suddenly opened his eyes wide. A strong premonition surged through him, intense, indescribable. Something was coming. He didn't know what, but he could feel it clearly. Without hesitation, he got up, put on his clothes, and stepped outside. He walked. Then stopped. Then walked again, until he reached the edge of the city. His eyes narrowed as he looked at the place before him, his expression calm, yet alert. This place, he knew it well. It was the site of his previous clash with Azazel. The fight had been cut short when Rias intervened. Had Azazel continued, it would have drawn too much attention and trouble, so he chose to withdraw. Suddenly, a sharp voice pierced through the silence of the night. "So you finally showed up." Chapter 43, Vali, the White Dragon Emperor. Chapter 43 Vali, the White Dragon Emperor. The night sky stretched wide above, and a brilliant full moon hung proudly at its center. Akira stood still in an open field, his gaze shifting toward the source of a distant sound. Bathed in silver moonlight, a lone figure stood tall in the distance. The moon behind him framed his silhouette striking and unforgettable. "So we finally meet, my true rival." In that pale glow, Akira could clearly see his opponent's face, a handsome young man with silver hair, staring back at him with unwavering confidence. The White Dragon Emperor. The Red Dragon Emperor. It took only one glance for the two to recognize each other. Even though Akira had no memories of this world, as the wielder of boosted gear, he instinctively sensed the overwhelming presence in front of him. Red and White, two opposing forces. Drake and Albion, the heavenly dragons locked in conflict for centuries, now carrying on their eternal battle through the bodies of their current hosts. Akira could feel the white dragon's aura so different from Drake's coursing through the young man before him. And that man, too, could feel the echo of Drake within Akira. "I'm Vali, current bearer of the White Dragon Emperor's power. Shin Akira. This generation's Red Dragon Emperor." They exchanged names, not just as a form of greeting, but as an acknowledgement of destiny, a solemn rite before the clash to come. Suddenly, a pair of radiant wings appeared behind Vali. Made of shimmering ice blue light, they gave off a unique aura, part magic, part divine technology, otherworldly in its brilliance. "Red, so we meet again." A deep, echoing voice rang out from within the wings. It was Albion, the white dragon's spirit sealed within divine dividing. In life, Albion had been Drake's mortal enemy. Even after death, their rivalry persisted through the sacred gears they now inhabited. Why so quiet, Red? That's not like you. You usually jump at the chance to throw insults." Their meetings were always filled with sharp jabs and barbed remarks. But today, Drake remained completely silent, a change that made the air feel unusually still. "Ah, sorry about that," Akira said with a casual smile. "I forgot to undo the mental seal I placed on Drake. I usually keep his consciousness suppressed." With that, a crimson gauntlet materialized on Akira's right arm, the signature form of the boosted gear, its design resembling a dragon's claw. At the same moment, the seal faded. "TCH. So you finally admit you need my help, Shin Akira?" Drake's voice thundered to life, startling both Vali and Albion. Was there discord between the Red Dragon Emperor and his spirit? "Relax," Akira replied calmly. "I only let you out because you're old friends here, Drake." "Old friend? Wait, that power. Ugh, it's you again, you annoying white." Drake instantly recognized Albion's aura. The two had clashed countless times across the ages, and even in death, their feud had never cooled. "Looks like your luck's run out this time, Red. So this is your doing, White. What now? Have you become your host's pet? How disgraceful for a so-called heavenly dragon." Still mouthing off, as always, Albion. While the two dragons bickered, Akira and Vali exchanged silent stares. A faint smile tugged at Vali's lips. He was genuinely impressed that Akira had found a way to suppress the consciousness of a dragon spirit, something he himself had never attempted. "I have to admit, I'm a bit touchy when it comes to privacy," Akira said lightheartedly. "Having a dragon watch my life 24/7 just isn't my thing, so I installed some boundaries." "Boundaries? Do you have any idea who you're talking to, human?" "Of course I do. Two dead dragons whose corpses were repurposed into Longinus-class sacred gears, and whose souls are now sealed for eternity, unable to escape no matter what they do. Doesn't sound like something to brag about. How dare you insult us, the heavenly dragons?" A wave of pressure suddenly burst forth, an oppressive aura, like a mountain crashing down from the sky. Akira raised an eyebrow. So Albion could project his power into the real world? If that was the case, what about Drake? Did I say anything wrong? Wasn't it because of your battle back then dragging yourselves into the war between the three factions that you both ended up dead? You underestimated the gods and devils, and paid the price for your arrogance. His words were like oil thrown onto an open flame. Albion's fury surged to the surface. Vala, kill him! The bloodlust in Albion's voice was palpable, compelling his host to strike. That's enough, Albion. I don't remember you being so easily provoked. Vala's voice was cold and composed. Vala, this fight is mine. Not yours. Silence. The two dragons fell quiet, their presence still looming but subdued by their hosts. Akira watched the scene unfold with a faint smirk. He hadn't expected Vala to be this firm. No wonder. The blood of a direct Mu descendant clearly ran strong through him. Shin Akira, Vala began, Azazel told me you possess two sacred gears. One is the boosted gear. The other a mysterious chain that can restrain spiritual beings. You also wield lightning and can draw power from the earth. As expected of Azazel, the Governor-General of Grigori. It only took one meeting for him to figure out all my cards. You know, the moment I heard about you, I was thrilled. I have two goals in life. The first, defeat the true Red Dragon God Emperor, Great Red, and take his place as the true White Dragon God Emperor. Oh? Challenging Great Red? That's one hell of an ambition, Vala. And my second goal, defeat the Red Dragon Emperor of this generation, and make this era known by the name Vala. Becoming the symbol of an era isn't something you can achieve with words alone. I know. That's why I'll carve it into history with absolute strength. Balance breaker! Balance breaker! The two Longinus resonated in unison. Akira was engulfed in red dragon armor, crimson wings blazing behind him. Vala donned silver-white armor, crystalline blue wings extending from his back like the sky itself had solidified. Their auras clashed in the heavens, splitting the sky into two dominant colors, fiery red and glacial blue. The night wind whispered through the silence. A single leaf drifted to the ground. And the moment it touched the earth they moved. Their armored fists collided with a thunderous crash, as if two mountains had slammed into each other. The battlefield trembled under the weight of their power. Divide. Boost. One power reduced. The other amplified. The clash of these two overwhelming forces had begun. Chapter 44, Wisdom of the People. Chapter 44, Wisdom of the People. A thunderous impact split the air as two Longinus-class sacred gears collided. In a single instant, everything around them was obliterated, reduced to ruins under the sheer pressure of their clash. The sky trembled with waves of blazing magical energy, scorching the very air itself. Divide. Albion's voice rang out in Akira's ears. He could feel his strength rapidly draining from his body, siphoned away as if torn from the core of his soul. Boost. But Drake's roar followed right after. The energy that had begun to vanish surged back, flowing as if from an endless source, replenished in an instant. The Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor, two heavenly dragons, born of the dragon race that reigned supreme over the world. Their powers were absolute opposites, clashing like fire and ice. Drake and Albion weren't just any dragons, they were the two heavenly dragons, beings that had surpassed even the 5 great dragon kings. Only two beings stood above them in power, Apis, the dragon god of infinity, and Great Red, true Red Dragon God Emperor, the true dragon god. Vala, floating in the air before Shin Akira, narrowed his eyes slightly. His voice was calm as ever. Why aren't you using your other sacred gear? A double sacred gear wielder in most circumstances, that would be considered outright cheating. But Vala didn't care. If anything, it made the fight more exciting. He sought power above all, and no opponent, no matter how overpowered, would ever make him flinch. Akira gave a small nod. If you insist. The moment the words left his lips, the air was pierced by the sharp sound of chains snapping into existence. From all directions, golden chains of heaven shot toward the sky, their presence pulsing with divine pressure. Now this is more like it. Vala grinned, even as he soared higher into the night. His movements were lightning fast, weaving through the golden restraints with graceful precision. Suddenly, the clouds above were torn apart by a pale blue lightning dragon. It roared through the sky, its form majestic and swift as it dove toward Vala. It was Akira's lightning magic, fully realized. With his current magical reserves, conjuring a dragon-shaped construct was hardly a challenge. The lightning beast slammed into Vala with full force. Divide! 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 As soon as the impact landed, the effect of divine dividing activated. The roaring lightning dragon weakened with each passing moment, its overwhelming form shrinking until it became a mere serpentine flicker no more than a spark, which Vala effortlessly dispelled with a swipe of his hand. That kind of trick won't work on me, Vala said flatly, his tone as composed as his gaze. Akira shrugged. I didn't expect it to. Boost. In a short span of time, Akira had already amplified his power several times over. Compared to his previous battle against Azazel, his strength now was in a completely different league. With the boosted gear, his energy output had risen to monstrous levels. Vala could feel it. The oppressive force of Akira's magic was nearly suffocating, so thick it felt like the air itself was pushing him down. There was one key advantage Akira's boosted gear scale mail had over Vala's divine dividing: it didn't require physical contact to activate. By contrast, Vala needed to touch his opponent to use divide. That alone made Akira far more adaptable in combat. Akira smiled. Now, behold the power that rivals the King of Heroes, Gate of Babylon, wisdom of the people. With a low, thunderous hum, the ground beneath Akira's feet began to tremble. Then, the earth burst open. Stone tendrils erupted from below, each ending in the shape of a different weapon: swords, spears, axes, and countless others, all shimmering with ancient might. Vala's eyes widened. For a brief moment, he was speechless. The battlefield had become a weaponized landscape. Thousands of armaments rose from the ground like a metallic forest. The ability to forge weapons from the earth. That clearly wasn't part of the boosted gear. Could it be? Akira possessed a third sacred gear? One that specialized in creation? Vala frowned. Azazel never mentioned this. No wonder he was caught off guard. A split second later, the newly forged weapons began launching toward him with terrifying speed. Each weapon carried an aura sharp enough to rival a noble phantasm. For the first time in this battle, Vala's calm demeanor shifted. He moved swiftly, dodging and parrying the attacks with sharp precision, but he no longer looked as casual as before. Akira remained grounded, encased in crimson armor. And yet, there was something else. A faint greenish glow clung to his body, subtle, but distinct. It wasn't something that could be hidden. Boost! 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 The power UPS continued without pause. Even after unleashing such overwhelming magic, Akira's energy showed no signs of depleting. On the contrary, it kept growing stronger. Vala clicked his tongue. This can't go on. I need to eliminate all those weapons, fast. He could feel Akira's magical output rising by the second. If left unchecked, the situation would spiral beyond his control. He acted immediately. In midair, Vala halted. His wings of icy blue light flared out, glowing with intensified brilliance. A pulse of raw power surged out from his back. With one blinding explosion, a shockwave of magic erupted outward, obliterating the field of weapons below. Then, in the blink of an eye, Vala became a white streak racing toward Akira. He couldn't afford to let this turn into a war of attrition. Azazel had warned him Akira could draw power from the earth beneath him. As long as he stayed grounded, he would never run out of magical energy. He was like a living generator. If allowed to continue, Akira would become unstoppable. Shin Akira! Vala roared, closing in. Akira looked up at him with a faint smile. A wise choice. He released his control over the wisdom of the people that had merged with the terrain. With a single motion, golden chains shot out from behind him, chains of heaven, ready to intercept. Vala raised his hand. A dark blue magic circle bloomed before him. A barrage of magical projectiles burst forth, tearing through the chains with brutal efficiency. He didn't stop. He pierced forward, straight toward Akira. Then impact. Red collided with silver. Boosted gear scale mail clashed against divine dividing scale mail. The earth cracked beneath their feet, spiderweb fissures spreading from the epicenter. Divide. With the clash of their fists, Vala grinned in satisfaction. Contact had been made and now, divide could activate. Akira's magic was instantly halved. But then, Akira smiled as well. He knew the weakness of divine dividing. He had read this part of the story before. In the next moment, Vala's expression shifted. The sheer volume of Akira's magic overwhelmed the system. His mana was too vast, far more than Vala's body could absorb. Divine Dividing's automatic safety protocols kicked in. The crystal blue wings on Vala's back began to fade, their color draining to a pale red. Scarlet particles of magic scattered into the air like glowing embers, forming a radiant mist. It was the fail-safe mechanism of divine dividing. When the absorbed magic exceeds the host's limit, the wings forcibly release the excess, preventing overheating or catastrophic backlash. Chapter 45, A Gift from the Red Dragon Emperor. Chapter 45, A Gift from the Red Dragon Emperor. With just a single clash and a swift retreat, Akira and Vala put some distance between them, dozens of meters apart, floating midair, eyes locked in silent tension. Vala didn't follow up with another attack. Instead, he chose to stay back, focusing on dispersing the excess magical energy surging wildly within his body. Akira watched calmly. There was no need for words. The pale pink wings of light spread behind Vala told him everything he needed to know. They were glowing far too brightly. So this is your limit? How disappointing, Akira said flatly, though his tone carried a sharp edge of provocation. Vala didn't respond immediately. But he wasn't surprised either. He knew well that throughout history, the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor had always been destined to clash. And perhaps, for that very reason, they understood each other better than anyone else. After all, it's not your friends who understand your strength the most, it's your enemies. Boost. Drake's voice echoed once more. But this time, Albion remained silent. Vala didn't dare continue absorbing Akira's power. His body had already reached its limit. If he kept trying to take in that kind of magic, the result would only be self-destruction. This was the fundamental difference between the boosted gear scale mail of the Red Dragon Emperor and the divine dividing scale mail of the White Dragon Emperor. The Red Dragon Emperor could push beyond the brink. Even in desperate moments, he could continue to grow stronger, fueled by sheer willpower. And it was at those lowest points that miracles were born. Boost. Vala, now it's my turn. Akira activated his power. In an instant, his transformation ability kicked in, enhancing a single attribute to its extreme. This time, he pushed his strength stat to the very edge. He vanished from sight. The ground beneath where he stood cracked and caved from the force of his leap. A split second later, he reappeared in front of Vala, fist raised, and unleashed a devastating blow. Vala had no choice but to meet it head-on. But Akira's strength was now at the peak of the ultimate class. That punch wasn't something that could be blocked easily. With transformation, Akira could amplify whatever stat suited the situation best. And in this moment, that punch crashed into Vala with terrifying force, sending his body flying backward. Don't get cocky, Red Dragon Emperor, Vala growled, steadying himself midair. As a battle maniac, Vala's experience and instinct were unparalleled. Even if he couldn't use Divide for now, the raw power surging through his body had reached a peak of its own precisely because he had pushed himself to the edge. Their bodies collided again and again. The sound of armor clashing echoed through the skies. It was no longer about magic or sacred gears. They fought like warriors in full armor, slugging it out with pure, brute force. A savage, no-holds-barred duel. Boost. Akira's power surged once more. The magic inside him doubled again. He was now nearing the absolute limit of what his body could contain. And yet, he smiled. Vala could no longer absorb his power. But Akira? He could still keep boosting his own. Vala, this is something I've been preparing just for you. Accept it with everything you've got. Vala's face was hidden behind his divine dividing helmet, but somewhere deep down, he already knew. He'd been set up. Boosted Gear Gift, a gift from the Red Dragon Emperor. It was one of the most dangerous abilities of the Boosted Gear Scale Male Power Transfer. Akira poured all of his boosted magical energy into a single target volley. Straight into the body of someone whose sacred gear was already bursting at the seams. It was the complete antithesis of divine dividing. Instead of absorbing power, Vala was being force-fed all of it. A violent explosion of energy burst forth from his body. Akira could only guess, but by his estimate, that level of magical output was easily on par with a mu. Maybe more. It was hard to say for sure, but it was undoubtedly dangerous. Cracks formed. Vala's pristine white armor began to shatter. A moment later, the divine dividing scale mail collapsed in pieces. Blood gushed from his mouth as the overwhelming surge of energy tore through his body and his sacred gear like a storm. I never thought I'd be injured by a technique like that, Vala muttered, staring at Akira with solemn eyes. He was now out of his balance breaker state. Akira's fighting style made him wary. And that was rare. Vala had faced countless battles. He didn't always win, but this was the first time he had suffered damage not from a lack of skill but because his own body couldn't withstand the power he had taken in. Shin Akira, your fighting style is far more unpredictable than I expected. I went through something similar when I fought Azazel, Akira replied, locking eyes with Vala. When magic exceeds the limits of your body, even you can get hurt. So combat itself is like nourishment for you, hey. At this point, Akira had reached the very pinnacle of the ultimate class. Though he had once lost to Azazel due to the massive gap in power, the experience had pushed him forward in ways nothing else could. Drake the Red Dragon sealed within the boosted gear watched his host with complicated feelings. Akira might very well be the strongest Red Dragon Emperor in history. And even he couldn't deny the quiet hope stirring in his heart for this boy's future. But at the same time, Akira was the only host who had ever dared to place limits on his own strength. And that more than anything was something Drake didn't quite like. Vala, are you okay? Albion's voice spoke up in Vala's mind. I'll live. I'm injured, but it's not fatal. That opponent of yours is no ordinary fighter. I'm aware. But this is your chance. He just transferred all his magic to you. His body should be empty now. Vala nodded faintly. Did you say just transferred? Wait, no way, his magic's already recovered. He's drawing energy from the ground. Albion sounded genuinely stunned. Replenishing magic directly from the earth? Then what was even the point of exhausting him? The sound of chains echoed once more, chains of heaven launched from every direction. But this time, Vala was wounded. His movements had slowed. He could still dodge and retaliate against the golden chains, but bit by bit, they were starting to overwhelm him. Cursed thunder, blue lightning dragon. From within a storm of magic lightning, a dragon of bluish-green lightning roared to life, rushing at Vala with speed that easily outpaced the earlier chains. Vala didn't have time to react. The attack struck him dead on. Divide. Vala coughed blood. The effect of divide had returned. The earlier overload had cleared the burden from his wings, and he was once again able to absorb magic. He managed to sap a significant portion of the blue lightning dragon's energy. But not all of it. The remaining force crashed into his body, dealing yet another serious blow. Chapter 46, The Embarrassment of a Chiunibu. Chapter 46, The Embarrassment of a Chiunibu. Under the quiet night sky, the sound of footsteps echoed clearly across the desolate air. Akira walked forward at a slow pace, eyes locked on Vala, who now hung suspended in the air, completely bound by the golden chains of heaven. He was utterly restrained. His power, his strength, everything had left him. He had lost. And yet, Vala's gaze was still sharp. Even if his body could no longer fight, his will and consciousness remained unwavering. Vala, Akira called out softly, his voice calm. It looks like, the name that history will remember, won't be yours. He paused, then added, it'll be mine, Shin Akira. Vala clenched his teeth. There was no arguing against this defeat. No excuse, no justification. He had lost to his eternal rival. Akira had used tricks in the fight, sure. But Vala didn't care about that. In the world of battle, there's no such thing as fairness. A loss is a loss. Ha, you won. Vala's tone was low but firm. Then go ahead, kill me. If I couldn't beat you, then this is as far as I go. Death wasn't something Vala feared. What made him hesitate wasn't fear, it was frustration. His ambition hadn't yet been fulfilled. He hadn't reached the top of the world. But in the end, victory crowns the king. The loser has no right to speak. Kill you. Akira raised his hand and snapped his fingers. The golden chains around Vala dissolved into shimmering light particles and vanished into the night. I have no reason to kill you, Akira said plainly. Besides, Azazel once let me live for your sake. Think of this as returning the favor. Vala's eyes widened slightly at that. You're sparing me? But aren't we supposed to be destined enemies? You had the perfect chance. Akira met his gaze, expression calm. A defeated enemy is no longer my opponent. I'm giving you time to catch up. Until the day you no longer can. Without waiting for a response, Akira turned around and walked away, leaving Vala in silence beneath the moonlight. Vala stared after him, eyes fixed on Akira's retreating figure as it slowly vanished into the darkness. The dullness in his eyes faded, replaced by a spark of heat, his fighting spirit reigniting. An opponent like that only made his blood boil even more. Vala, I have to admit, Drake really hit the jackpot with this host. I thought having a direct descendant of a mole like you was already incredible. But it seems, he's even luckier than you are. Ha, doesn't that just make it more fun, Albion? Vala chuckled softly. Facing someone that's strong, makes me want to reach even greater heights. Perhaps the two of you truly are the strongest red and white dragon emperors in history. Even in the future, surpassing you both won't be easy. In that case, Vala said, eyes turning toward the sky, let's begin the final phase of training when we return. You sure about this? Vala, that training could kill you. Facing an opponent like that, if I don't throw everything I have into it, I may as well be dead already. Understood. Vala slowly closed his eyes, then reopened them, his resolve stronger than ever. Wait for me, Shin Akira. The next time we meet, I'll be stronger. Strong enough to take you down. As a direct descendant of a Mu, Vala's body possessed incredible regenerative power. His injuries were already beginning to heal enough for him to stand. A magic circle formed beneath his feet. Bathed in its glow, Vala's figure slowly faded and disappeared from the courtyard. Elsewhere, on a quiet city street bathed in moonlight, Akira's face was turning red. His usual composed expression was now tinged with awkwardness and second-hand shame. If anyone had been around to witness this, it would have been the ultimate social death moment. Why the hell did I say something like that? He muttered to himself. Did I just regress into my teenage years? Shin Akira, you're not developing a case of Chiunibu, are you? Drake's voice echoed inside his mind, laced with genuine amusement and a hint of disbelief. Back when Akira had spoken to Vali, his tone had been so regal, so dramatic, that even Drake had gotten chills. But then, the same guy had walked off in a fluster, clearly regretting every word. Now, Akira stood there with the expression of a man who had just unearthed an old diary full of embarrassing middle school fantasies. Out of all the new terms I've learned in this modern era, Chiyunibitu suits you the most. Shut it, Drake. I've already grown out of that phase, okay? So you did go through that phase. Zip it. Go face the wall or something. Hey, wait, I'm not done. Without hesitation, Akira severed the mental link. Drake's voice cut off mid-sentence. Akira stood there in silence, his face a mix of exasperation and second-hand embarrassment. He had no idea why those words had come out of his mouth earlier. Maybe to others, it sounded cool or dramatic. But to him? It was a line straight out of his own sacred Chiyunibitu scriptures, a past he had buried deep and vowed never to revisit. Now, hearing himself speak like that again, made him want to dig a hole and vanish. I swore I was done with that phase, so why the hell did it come back now, he grumbled. If time travel were possible, he'd gladly choke his past self to stop that sentence from ever happening. Even if no one else heard it, the self-inflicted shame was enough to convict him for crimes against dignity. But after a deep breath and a moment to collect himself, Akira glanced at the status panel that floated before him. A subtle, proud smile formed at the corner of his lips. Name, Shin Akira. Status, Transfer Student of Kuoh Academy Level 6 Ultimate Class Template, Enkidu, 60.6%, Noble Phantasm, Chains of Heaven Talents, Consummated Shape, King of Beasts Instinct, Body Transformation Skills, Blue Lightning, Aura Detection, Wisdom of the People Equipment, Boosted Gear, Red Dragon Emperor's Gauntlet, Items. His template inheritance had climbed to 60.6%. Just from the fight with Vali alone, he'd gained a whopping 8% increase, an extraordinary leap. From 52.6% to 60.6% in one go. Despite all his hunting of stray devils, nothing accelerated his growth quite like a full-blown one-on-one duel. Now, more than ever, he was looking forward to facing Riser. Not just because Riser was a high-class devil, but because his peerage would make ideal targets. Perfect for racking up inheritance points. Akira was already speculating, if he could take down Riser and his entire peerage, he might just break through to the next stage. Tonight had been exhausting. But the rewards were more than worth it. And with his power now higher than ever, Shin Akira looked ahead to a future filled with even greater challenges. And even greater victories. Chapter 47, A Morning Surprise. Chapter 47, A Morning Surprise. That morning, Akira woke up feeling warm, as if the remnants of his dreams still lingered on his skin. He stretched with a quiet yawn, his face looking unusually refreshed. No surprise there, last night had been a night of great accomplishment. Wearing only a loose, comfortable pajama set, Akira stepped off the bed and made his way out of the room, intending to head straight for the bathroom. Ever since moving into this new villa, life had been significantly more enjoyable. He no longer had to cram himself into a tiny 1DK apartment like before. But the moment he pushed open the bathroom door, his brain froze on the spot. A scream echoed through every corner of the villa. Akira spun around instantly, slammed the door shut, and shouted, "I'm sorry. I didn't see anything." Apology. Turn. Close the door. All in one fluid motion, faster than his reaction in most combat situations. But, what he'd just witnessed had already burned itself into his mind like a permanent engraving. Even though Akira wasn't exactly a saint in his past life, he had over 50 gigabytes of educational material tucked away in a hard drive. Seeing it in real life was an entirely different story. Screens and reality were separated by a dimensional wall, and just now, that wall had shattered completely. Whether he opened his eyes or closed them, the scene kept replaying over and over again in his mind. Wait, this is my house. And the one inside just now wasn't that. The bathroom door suddenly opened. Rias Gremory stepped out, wrapped in a freshly worn yukata, her long crimson hair dripping with water. The droplets trickling down her strands gave her a refreshing, almost seductive glow. Her expression? Far from pleased. You know, Akira-san, peeking on a girl while she's bathing isn't exactly gentlemanly. Her voice was calm, gentle, even but laced with unmistakable reproach. Akira hadn't even gotten the chance to defend himself when the sound of rushing footsteps came from the hallway. 3 female figures appeared moments later, Akeno Himejima, Konako Tajao, and Asia Argento. What happened, Rias? Akeno asked, glancing around with sharp eyes. She took in the scene: Rias's wet yukata, her dripping hair, and Akira standing awkwardly nearby. Her eyes narrowed with curiosity. Konako and Asia both turned to Rias with confused expressions, while Akira could only scream internally. Where the hell did all of you come from? This is my house, not the occult research club. Weren't you supposed to have gone home last night? Except Asia. It's nothing, Rias replied flatly. I was taking a bath, and Akira walked in without knocking. I screamed without thinking. As soon as those words left her mouth, all 3 girls turned their attention to Akira and their expressions shifted instantly. Fufu boys your age really are brimming with morning energy, aren't they? Akeno said, smiling mysteriously. Pervert, Konako muttered coldly. Shin-san, that's not very nice. But, if you really wanted to, I wouldn't mind, you know, Asia added sweetly. The moment Asia finished speaking, the other 3 girls immediately glared at her, then shot Akira another round of scornful stares. What's with those looks? Asia, stop saying things that make this worse. Konako, I'm not a pervert. And Akeno, please, stop talking like that. Listen, everyone. This is my house, Akira finally sighed and tried to explain. I've lived alone here for a while now. Waking up and walking to the bathroom without knocking is completely normal for me. Besides, didn't you all leave last night? Why are you here this early? And Rias, why were you even bathing in my house to begin with? Akeno answered in a light tone. We came to check on Asia. Living with an adult man can be a little dangerous. Her teasing tone was obvious, but Akira clearly caught the word she almost said: dangerous. Hey? How did you even get in? Akira asked sharply. Coming from China in his past life, he had a strong habit of locking every door before bed. Especially after last night's battle against Vala, he definitely remembered locking up the entire place. When this villa was transferred to you, I might have accidentally kept a few spare keys, Rias replied, flashing a carefree smile. That's a blatant invasion of privacy. Isn't this technically breaking and entering? Akira could feel his soul sighing. This place was supposed to be his safe haven, yet somehow, the keys had ended up in the hands of several uninvited guests. Fine. Whatever. Let's set that aside for now. But Rias, why were you bathing here so early in the morning? Was that seriously your only reason for stopping by? The water heater at my place broke, Rias replied without the slightest hint of guilt. Oh, come on. Couldn't you have come up with a more believable excuse? This isn't some cliché rom-com manga. Inside, Akira felt the nerves in his head begin to fray. If yesterday was a day of victory, then today was a day of disaster. Rias narrowed her eyes and stared directly at him. Since you've asked all your questions, how about we discuss your responsibility now? You walked in on me while I was bathing. What are you going to do about that? Her slight smirk made it clear she was doing this on purpose. Akira frowned. You're seriously trying to accuse me? When you literally broke into my house. I did enter without permission. That's a fact. But you also saw my body. That's also a fact. So? What exactly do you expect me to do? Even though he felt like the victim here, Akira knew full well. In situations like this, the guy was always the one who got blamed. You saw a girl naked? Doesn't matter how it happened, you're in the wrong. I am the daughter of the Gremory family, Rias said, her voice cool and composed. The next head of the household. My body is not meant to be seen by anyone, except my future husband. Do you understand what that means? Hearing that, Akira let out a long, weary sigh. His expression didn't budge an inch. He simply stared back at her, utterly unimpressed. If you're talking about the sanctity of your body, isn't that a joke? This was the world of high school DxD, a chaotic, supernatural fantasy overflowing with fan service. The number of spicy scenes in this storyline was beyond counting, and Rias herself was often at the center of them. As the president of the Occult Research Club, she frequently appeared post-shower, clad only in a towel or less. Not only Hyudo Issei, but even Chiba Uedo had seen her in similar situations. No one ever made a big deal out of it. Was it because Chiba wasn't interested? Or maybe, he was just used to it. Either way, Akira knew one thing for sure, Rias's declaration just now was nothing more than a playful trap wrapped in pretty words. Chapter 48, A Promise to Rias. Chapter 48, A Promise to Rias. Akira's gaze briefly sharpened, laced with a faint hint of sarcasm. And just that alone was enough to make Rias feel irritated. As the heiress of the Gremory family, a high-ranking noble house in the underworld, she had never once shown her body to a man. And yet, just now, that barrier had been broken, and to make things worse, the man who saw her didn't even seem fazed. What are you planning to do next? Akira asked calmly, eyes locked on Rias. His tone made it clear he knew this hadn't been a coincidence. This was all too perfectly arranged. Oh, by the way, Akira, Rias suddenly said. You still owe me a favor, don't you? Right, I do. Are you planning to use it now? Let's say, with what just happened earlier added to that debt, help me with one thing. And what would that be? Be my boyfriend. Huh? Boyfriend? Are you serious? I'm engaged to someone from another noble house in the underworld, the third son of the Phoenix family. It's an arranged marriage between our two houses. I'm sure you understand what that means. So, you want me to pretend to be your boyfriend and use that to cancel the engagement? Exactly. All right. I'll do it. Without the slightest hesitation, Akira nodded. The third son of the Phoenix family, hey? How convenient. I've been waiting for a chance like this. And now that Rias herself was the one setting the stage, he wouldn't need to go out of his way to bait the guy out. The irritation Akira had felt from being set up earlier by Rias began to melt away. After all, he was coming out ahead. He'd seen a beautiful woman naked and paid nothing for it. Now he had a chance to repay his debt, and even use Riser Phoenix as a stepping stone to earn more inheritance points. From every angle, this was a win. Thank you. Rias looked momentarily stunned by how fast and straightforward Akira's answer had been. She hadn't expected him to agree so easily. Somehow, that made her like him a little more. Maybe this man wasn't so bad after all. Of course, the whole boyfriend thing was just a convenient excuse. As the daughter of the Gremory family, Rias knew all too well that her future marriage would eventually become entangled in politics and family interests. That's why, if she had the chance, she wanted to choose someone she could at least accept. And right now, Akira seemed like that person: immense strength, no ties to noble families, and above all, endless potential. If she had to gamble her future and her happiness, then this man might just be worth the risk. Elsewhere in the room, Hime-jima Akeno watched the entire exchange and felt something heavy stir in her chest. She had been the one closest to Akira from the start. But now, he was Rias's boyfriend. As Rias's queen in her peerage, Akeno understood exactly what that title implied. Once a label like that was attached, it wouldn't be easy to take it back. Well then. I'll leave my future in your hands, darling. Rias whispered the words playfully as she stepped closer, almost brushing against Akira's body. Her wet yukata clung tightly to her curves, revealing far more than it should, especially around her chest. Combined with her teasing tone and seductive gaze, Akira's face flushed red despite himself. When exactly is your fiancé coming? I'm not sure. Originally, we agreed to marry after I finished my education in the human world. But now, he might be getting impatient. How do you know? I am the daughter of the Gremory household. Of course, I have my sources. All right. I'll help you. Just last night, Akira had defeated the White Dragon Emperor, Vali. His inheritance point rate had climbed to 60.6%. Among the ultimate class devils, he was now in the upper mid-tier. And with boosted gear scale mail, his balance breaker form dealing with Riser Phoenix, a glorified flaming turkey, was hardly a concern. After everything was discussed, Rias returned to the bathroom to rinse off and change into fresh clothes. Meanwhile, Akira headed to the other bathroom to clean up as well. By the time they made it to the dining room, Akeno had already prepared breakfast for everyone. After a light meal together, they began getting ready for the day ahead. It wasn't a holiday, so time was tight. Akira, Rias, and the others grabbed their school bags and made their way to Kuoh Academy. I'll take Asia to Sana's office. Once the transfer paperwork is done, I'll bring her to Konako's class. All right. I'm counting on you to take care of her. Leave it to me. Once they reached the main lobby of Kuoh Academy, Akira parted ways with the others. Rias and Akeno brought Asia to the student council room. As a new transfer student, this was standard procedure. More importantly, the school technically belonged to their family, so the entire process was a formality. Meanwhile, Akira headed toward his classroom alone. He had always been a loner, never really getting close to anyone. Over time, a kind of emptiness had formed around him. At school, everyone had their own little group. If you didn't join one, you'd end up isolated, treated coldly, and sometimes even bullied. Akira hadn't been bullied, exactly, but he was certainly ignored by most of his classmates. No one approached him. Good morning, Shin Akira-kun. Ah. Good morning, Hanakai-san. As he sat down, a silver-haired girl greeted him with a bright smile. Hanakai Momo, the only girl in class who still made an effort to talk to him. She was also the only member of the student council in their class. Some of the students nearby glanced over with confused and surprised expressions when they saw her talking to Akira again. At Kuoh Academy, the student council held considerable authority, arguably the highest among students. On top of that, Momo was one of the prettiest girls in school. Naturally, she was very popular. So, seeing someone like her regularly talking to someone like Akira, a guy who kept to himself, sparked curiosity and gossip among their classmates. They just didn't get it. Why would she go out of her way to talk to him? Shin-kun, I saw you this morning with Rias-sama, Akeno-senpai, and Tujao-san. Did you join Rias-sama's peerage? No. I'm not going to be under anyone. Whether it's Rias or your Kaiku, they should give up. Shin-kun, you don't have to be so blunt. Momo smiled, her voice light and cheerful, but her heart felt heavy. It had been over a month since she started trying to get close to him. And still, their relationship hadn't moved an inch. She was serious about her feelings for him. But no matter how hard she tried, he always kept his distance, making it hard for her to find a way in.